2 days ago, the docs signed my death warrant. Yesterday, my girl left me for another guy. Stage 4 bone cancer. I moved into a literal dump to wait for the end. Out of pure boredom, I opened some malware that hijacked my phone. It was an app about a digital mage girlfriend. The poor girl had her magic core ripped out of her chest. She was starving near death. I spent $1 on a basic starter pack for her, thinking it was a joke. I didn't realize that Buck would rewrite her destiny. I figured it was just pixels until the day my digital girl handed me a vial of legendary elixir. A heartbeat later, the glass felt cold and heavy in my palm. Maybe I don't have to die. I'm Silas, a college junior whose life ended with a middle to late stage cancer diagnosis. 24 hours after the news, the woman who swore we were forever packed her bags. She took a midnight bus to nowhere, leaving me with $5,000 and a ticking clock. That money won't buy a cure. I dropped out, found a cheap room by the marsh, and prepared for the end. While I was lying there waiting for the lights to go out, an unblockable ad slammed onto my phone. Setup finished. Come and claim your virtual soulmate. Normally I'd delete that trash, but a dead man has nothing to lose. I wanted to see the scam for myself. I opened it. The visuals were stunning, better than any console game. A dozen anime-style girls lined up. There was a crime boss's daughter, a high-tech mech pilot, and a girl with literal dragon horns. I'm not into the flashy stuff. My eyes drifted past the fan service and landed on a girl in simple linen. Ella, an apprentice of the Firmament Order, 19 years old. Natural beauty, not a drop of makeup on her face. But her eyes, they were shattered. Empty. Reaching out from the screen in a silent scream for help. The devs really nailed the broken aesthetic. I tapped her icon. A blood-red prompt flashed. Selection is permanent. Once chosen, there is no going back. If your partner dies, she is erased forever. Typical drama for a cheap game, whatever. I hit confirm. The screen didn't show a cozy village. It showed a nightmare. A freezing, rotted shack. Elara was curled up on a soaking wet mat of straw, dressed in rags. She was a map of bruises. Deep, jagged cuts covered her skin and rain washed the blood from her face. Delighting the detail, her ragged, painful gasps, it felt way too real. It made my skin crawl. Red warnings began screaming across the screen. Elara is hypothermic. Elara is starving. Vitality critical. Afflicted by abyssal flame. Enduring excruciating pain. Lifespan remaining. 1 hour. Hell, she's dying right now. I scrambled, tapping every icon, looking for a medkit. A notification popped. First purchase bonus $1 for the home renovation bundle. Give her a home. $1. Pay. As soon as the digital payment cleared, a golden flash blinded me. The shack in the game began to transform miraculously. The wet straw turned into a solid oak bed with velvet sheets. The rotting wood walls became sturdy stone. A fireplace roared to life. Fine furniture and carved chairs materialized out of thin air. I watched breathless. Elara's reaction was terrifyingly human. She froze, then scrambled under the new bed like a hunted animal. It took forever for her to peek out. She touched the soft fabric like it was a dream. The way the mattress dipped under her weight was perfect. The physics, the micro-expressions, this wasn't an indie game. This was something godlike. Before I could process it, the pay-to-win prompts started hitting. $5 for a new outfit. $10 for a royal banquet. I'm a cheap eater, but I didn't hesitate. Purchase. $15 for her full history. Purchase. Purchase a case. $30 for legendary defensive runes. Fine, take it. I blew over $100 in seconds. The hut was now a palace. Roast turkey and beef Wellington sat on the table. Glowing runes guarded the door. Elara was losing her mind, terrified by the sudden magic. She stayed hidden, just a tiny foot visible. While she was cowering, I opened the digital file on her health and history. Seeing this made my blood boil. What they did to her was pure evil. She was a star pupil until she accidentally nicked that brat Serafina during the trials. Suddenly, every man in the Crimson Spire lost their damn minds and turned into monsters. Her mentor ripped out her core while her eldest brother shattered her magic. The second brother poisoned her. After the third brother kicked her out, the fourth one went further. He lured her into an ambush. He abandoned her broken, bleeding body in the Beast Woods, leaving her to be torn apart. These pathetic, obsessed fanboys are delusional. As I sat there fuming at my screen, Elara finally couldn't ignore the smell of food and crawled out. She stared at the roasted meat. Her stomach was screaming, yet she was too terrified to touch the silver. She knelt before the air. "Lord God, please show yourself," she pleaded. "If you do not wish to be seen, I will not eat. I would rather starve than offend you." Suddenly, a notification flashed on my monitor. The system asked permission for her to eat. I clicked yes. A divine chime echoed. Crying with relief, Elara snatched the meat and began eating like a starving animal. She was so desperate she even crunched the bones. Afterward, she neatly cleaned herself. She even took her plate out into the rain to wash it. Such a sweet, broken soul. But when I checked the map, my stomach dropped. Danger was closing in fast. 5 massive red dots were charging her shack, 5 shadow wolves, each the size of a bull. Elara was still out on the porch, totally oblivious. I hammered the screen trying to scream. A notification blocked the view. Pay $15 for a telepathic warning scroll. Forget the cost. I activated the scroll immediately and screamed at the monitor. Get inside, you are under attack. My voice boomed through her sky like thunder. Terrified, Elara dropped her dish and bolted back into the safety of home. She barricaded the door just as 3 wolves burst through the storm jaws wide. The fire trap I set on the entrance went off. A massive explosion engulfed the porch. 2 wolves were incinerated before they could even howl. The air turned heavy with scorched fur. The remaining pack members panicked. They scattered, trying to find a way in through the roof. They tried flanking from the roof. Then 2 massive explosions rocked the cabin. 2 more charred bodies hit the mud. The last survivor turned tail and bolted. The beast bolted for the woods. Suddenly a prompt offered a lightning strike for $45. You can't leave a job half-finished. If that thing survives, it is coming back. I could not risk her life. I hit the button and authorized the payment. A massive pillar of golden light tore through the clouds, incinerating the fleeing beast. Nothing remained but a smoking hole in the ground. The threat was gone in 30 seconds. Elara collapsed, staring at the destruction outside. She could not believe she was alive. She crawled outside and knelt in the mud, letting the rain soak her clothes. "Thank you for saving me, Lord," she sobbed. Seeing her like that made it worth the cost. I spent over $100 today, but her safety meant more than my bank balance. I checked her stats and winced. She was barely hanging on, crippled by 5 lethal curses. Her essence was scorched, her spirit broken, and dark demons were nesting within. Every time she tried to heal, her health bar drained further. She started coughing up blood. I looked at the shop, but the prices were insane. Everything was out of my league. The shop was pure highway robbery except for one limited high-tier flash sale, $30 mana field. 10 hours. Bought it. 10 glowing crystals and 8 golden banners rained from the sky encircling the girl. A massive aura flared to life. Elara stared at the glowing gems in pure shock. Her mouth fell open. In this realm, these were relics that even the highest demigods would kill for. Ancient monsters saved every penny for them, yet I threw them away like trash. A divine, reckless waste. Wiping her tears, she accepted my grace. She sat cross-legged, desperately drinking in the liquefied mana I provided. I watched her experience bar climb steadily, then finally set my phone down, feeling a hollow sense of peace. To keep this world alive, I had to work. I decided to return to my old life, streaming on Twitch. My hook, a terminal cancer patient's final ascent up Pike's Peak. Every cent earned was another day for her. Let her live, even if I don't. At midnight, my alarm screamed, pulling me from a dark, heavy sleep. I grabbed the phone. The energy ritual had ended. The mystical flags on the screen had gone cold. The crystals were dust, but Elara looked vibrant. Her status flickered successfully, reaching the rank of Junior Magic Apprentice. I almost exhaled in relief, but the screen suddenly flooded with aggressive flashing microtransaction pop-ups and limited offers. Digital Girl Shop, monthly pass $2.99, limited time deal for new users only. Daily mana potions and 1 free divine touch. I took a shaky, ragged breath, looking at my balance. Greedy developers. But Elara was still wincing, the fire poison inside her digital body burning her from within. I authorized the payment with Face ID. I'm dying anyway. My bank account doesn't need a future anymore. 2 heavy silk pouches fell from the sky onto her table. 1,000 gold can't buy my dying happiness. She peeked inside. 50 mana shards spilled out a fortune that usually took a core apprentice a whole month. Then she opened the second box. Inside sat a glowing ruby-like vial of pure concentrated potent restoration fluid. An epic-grade elixir, Elara whispered, her eyes brimming with fresh, disbelief-filled tears of pure joy and shock. These weren't just items. They were miracles. She bowed to the empty air, honoring her unseen, mysterious guardian. She promised a gift in return. Then a new system prompt flickered right against my tired, sunken eyes. Elara is healing. Would you like to use the divine touch to guide the healing process yourself? I hesitated. guide her personally. How could a dying man touch a girl made of light and code? I clicked confirm and typed a cold detached command, make it quick, I have very little time left. Hearing my voice from the void, she turned a deep burning shade of scarlet, her hands trembling slightly. Fiddling with her hem, she stammered, "My lord, Elara is too dirty. I am not fit for you. Please let me wash up first." A bathing scene, I nodded, my curiosity getting the better of me. She stepped into the bathroom. Like a fool, I tentatively tapped my finger against the digital glass door. Trust level too low, I snorted. At least the game pretended I had some shred of dignity left. I wasn't a creep, though my pulse suggested otherwise. Finally, the bathroom door slid open through the steam. She emerged in a thin white towel. Damp hair clung to her shoulders. Water traced paths down her skin. Kneeling on the bed, she turned away. The towel fell pooling around her hips in a soft silk heap. Her bare back was a masterpiece of light. I forgot to breathe. Then the instructions appeared on screen. Press the spinal nodes. Trace circles over the core. Use your touch to bridge these two separate worlds. This was literal. My shaking fingers touched the glass, finding the points on her digital glowing spine. Elara let out a soft, choked gasp. In her world, the impossible was happening right behind her skin. Two massive warm palms had materialized from the nothingness, pressing firmly against her shivering, bare, exposed back. I felt the heat. Arcane fire surged through her, dragging the black poisoned blood out of her system. I moved my fingers in rhythm. The progress bar turned green, ticking upward toward a full complete recovery. Circuits mended, vitality restored. The abyssal toxin was burned away until nothing remained but her perfect health. She was exhausted but glowing. Wrapping the towel tight, she blushed, her skin as clear as a pearl. "Your mercy is a debt I can never repay," she whispered. "May I know my savior's esteemed name?" A text box appeared. No screen names this time, no fake personas for the crowd watching me die. I typed, "Silas. If I vanish tomorrow, let this world keep the only part of me left. Silas, the spark that fights the dark. The shield that holds back the freezing night for her sake. Lord Silas, Elara will never forget." She looked back at the screen and gave me a true smile. Her eyes were soft enough to melt a stone heart. That smile, it wrecked me. How could this just be ones and zeros? She's a living, breathing soul, damn it. Once she was stable, I hit the help center to fix Kidamti, her broken mana star C. The Eye of Truth said it would take an ancient holy relic to mend it. Aegis remolding holy water. Only catch a $15,000 guarantee from the Pool of Destiny. 15 grand for a pity drop, that is highway robbery. I ripped off my cap and set an alarm for Ulajiza, the clinic tomorrow for a medical waiver. I am scaling Pike's Peak. I need that $15,000. I did not realize that pinging the Eye of Truth had just set the game world on fire. Ethelgard buckled. The stars shifted out of alignment. Ancient demigods trembled, fearing some god was messing with the fabric of reality. That god was looking all right, but he was just stressing over how to scrape together $15,000. The rain died down that night. Elara poured every last drop of her recovered mana into biting her finger. She used ancient elven script to scroll Silas on some tattered flags. It was a handmade charm. She even sacrificed her own luck to bind divine protection into the paper. "My lord, it is not much, but I hope you will accept it." She set the charm on the table, closed her eyes, and drifted off to sleep. The next morning, I woke up to a screen bleeding with red system warnings. Eye of Truth backlash. My luck stat bottomed out. 2 days fortune. Total catastrophe. Avoid mountains. I laughed. I have late-stage bone cancer. How much worse can it get? If I do not climb, I do not get the Aegis holy water. I closed the app. I was heading out when someone knocked. I opened the door to an empty hallway. A small box sat on the floor. No tracking number, no FedEx, no UPS. Just a line of script, a gift for Lord Silas from Elara. I knelt down. I grabbed the box and stared at her name. A cold shiver crawled down my spine. From Elara, it is just a game, right? I ripped the package open. Inside was a beautiful handmade sachet. Silas was written in messy cursive on the side. "Stay safe." I took a sniff. A faint, ghostly scent hit me. It was elegant, not sugary or overwhelming, just peaceful. This was not cheap perfume. It smelled like a real person was there. Like a real girl was standing right there. Game items were actually manifesting one-to-one into reality. This game is deep, but I could not overthink it. Elara's soul was still broken. To save her, I needed $15,000 for that holy water pool. I shaved my head, pinned my cancer diagnosis to my Twitch, and headed out. I hit Pikes Peak and went live. The title, Terminal Bone Cancer. 5-hour summit challenge. Immediately, the chat started trashing me for using my illness for clout. They thought it was a scam. This local guy Chad even threatened to come out. Midnight. Chad and a few others blocked the trail, mocking me and pointing. He told me to show my leg. I just rolled my pants up. The gnarly purple-red tumors were visible. The entire crowd went stone silent. Chad went pale. He slapped himself in shame and dropped 10 large donations on the spot to apologize. The stream went viral. Doubts turned to support, and the views hit the roof. I grabbed my tripod and started the ascent. Every step felt like a saw blade. I was drenched. My right leg felt like it was walking on glass. A crowd of tourists followed me up, everyone looking on with pure worry. Near the summit, my leg snapped with a crack. I collapsed onto the jagged rocks, my limb deformed. Pathological fracture, people screamed. Chad was panicked, already fumbling with his phone to dial 911. Clenching my jaw to stay conscious, I reached into my pack and snapped my collapsible cane into place. I hauled my weight upward. Quitting wasn't an option. No way. I still needed a few grand for Elara. My live chat exploded. Cash flooded the screen until some whale dropped $15,000 without saying a single word. That was it. As my boots hit the Pikes Peak summit, the first light of dawn broke. The clouds warped into a shimmering hallucination of an ancient Roman army marching across the morning sky. A ghostly god glided through the throngs of tourists, eventually pausing to tilt its massive head downward. Those golden cat-like eyes locked onto mine. Miracles didn't matter, I just had to get back down. Heading down, several tatted-up thugs packed themselves into my gondola, crowding my personal space. Right before the doors shut, my Lucky Charms cord snapped, sending the silk pouch tumbling to the deck. As I reached for it, the entire mountain gave a terrifying deep-seated roar. A falling rock flattened the lead car like a soda can. I lunged, rolling clear of the platform. I barely cheated death. Turns out the victims in that cabin were all high-level cartel members. Ignoring my shattered leg, I dragged myself toward a shop at the base of the trail. I snagged the charger. Once my screen flickered on frantic red alerts, drowned my entire display. Monsters are swarming Elara. She's bleeding out. Vital signs critical. Panic set in. Her home was a smoking ruin. Elara lay motionless. Soaked in blood, she lay amidst the carnage, her clothes torn to shreds. She clutched a snapped blade, choking on copper-tasting blood from her shredded lungs. Not on my watch. My thumbs became a blur as I tore through the in-game marketplace. I bought out every single fire rune in stock. Take it all. 200 bolts of holy lightning rained from the heavens, absolute devastation from above. The clearing turned into a thunderstorm of death, incinerating every monster into fine grey soot. The traitorous girl orchestrating the ambush got targeted by an epic spell, getting hammered until nothing remained. Her soul vanished. The threat was gone, but Elara's health bar was a hollow grey line. She was out cold. The game's brutal logic kicked in. Unconscious players can't drink health pots. I scanned for a fix. Cost $1,500 for a forbidden healing technique. Divine acupuncture. I paid the bill instantly, not a second thought. Once the needles were bought, an anatomical map of her pressure points filled my screen. My fingers danced, tapping, swirling, and flicking virtual needles into her digital flesh. After landing every strike, I crushed the potion and smeared the paste over her lacerations. Her flesh knitted back together. She was safe, but then the screen suddenly flickered out. Dead battery. I looked up to realize I was strapped to a gurney in an ER. The guy next to me had a bum leg and a kit of acupuncture needles handy. Seeing that kit on his nightstand made my fingertips tingle with a strange phantom energy. The game's mechanics were hardwired into my nerves. I reached out and snatched the needles. Replicating the digital patterns, I drove 36 needles into my own mangled purple leg. As I extracted them, the swelling subsided and the bruised dark blood vanished instantly. It worked. Good God, I'm a genius. The game skills are real. I cancelled my surgery and walked right out of there. After buying a needle kit, I hobbled into a diner and plugged my phone in. $15,000 hit my bank account. Time to roll the gacha. I went all in. Gold sparks flew as I reached the 1,000 pulpiti. A bottle of holy water sat in my bag. On screen, Elara was finally opening her eyes. She looked hopeless. I popped a voice scroll and handed her the miracle cure. Down this fast, it's holy water, the only thing that'll fix your mana core. Elara stared at the glowing vial, its radiance unlike anything she'd ever seen. The raw magic pulsing from it made her tremble. She realized the staggering cost of such a relic and couldn't bring herself to accept it, choosing pride over survival. "My lord, this gift is far too sacred," she whispered, her voice shaking. "I could never repay you." I scoffed at the screen. Did she really think I couldn't manage a simple NPC's drama? "Drop the act," I shouted. "This stuff is garbage to me anyway, so just take it." "I've already drawn too much heat. If you don't heal up now, you're just becoming a liability I can't afford." Tears welled in Elara's eyes. Dropping to one knee, she slammed a fist against her heart in a solemn salute, swearing an oath to the heavens. "I am eternally indebted to my lord's overwhelming mercy, a debt I can never truly settle. From this day on, should you command me to march through hellfire or across a blade-strewn wasteland, I will gladly die 1,000 deaths." Suddenly the air thrummed as her pledge bound itself to the very laws of reality. Gales lashed at her hair as she uncorked the vial and downed it in one go. A deafening crack echoed through the forest. A pillar of azure light shredded the digital sky. Raw mana spiraled upward, forming a massive cyclone that touched the heavens. Every ancient horror in Ethelgard stirred. Red dots swarmed the map like starving wolves. Naturally, the game engine threw me another curveball. Sacred artifact detected, global alert triggered, spend $5 to activate stealth mode and hide from the gods. I grumbled but hit pay. The beacon vanished instantly, leaving the continent's elite mages scrambling through the peaks like lost toddlers. I turned my attention back to Elara, whose health bar was finally surging. She started reconstructing her internal Starcy, and I finally let out a long breath. While her avatar sat in a meditative trance, I checked my inventory to sort through the trash from my last 1,000 pool haul. Sifting through the usual junk runes and common shards, a glimmer in the final slot caught my eye. A golden data tablet sat there pulsing with a divine blinding radiance. I tapped it. My jaw dropped. It was a mythic tier skill, the Astral Blade Codex. I had finally hit the jackpot. The holy grail for magic swordsmen. I tried to gift it to Elara immediately, but a red alert blocked the screen. Player must achieve basic mastery in the real world before teaching this skill. Then my front-facing camera blinked on. A ghostly avatar materialized on my phone, overlaid on my messy room, demonstrating a complex knightly pose balanced on one leg with a blade held high. I was completely speechless. This garbage app actually wanted me to do sword drills in my living room, with no other way forward. I winced, grabbed a plastic hanger from the closet, and dragged my heavy cast-bound leg into position. I struggled to mirror the avatar. I stayed like that for an hour, drenched in sweat and shaking with effort. Only to see the progress bar move a measly 1%. I keeled over, feeling like my entire skeleton was about to shatter. That's when I heard a dull, heavy thud coming from right outside my apartment door. I limped over and pulled it open to find a small, mangled black kitten sprawled on the floor. Its back legs were a bloody mess and hawk feathers were stuck to its fur. It must have been dropped by a predator mid-flight. I gently scooped the poor thing up and settled it into a shoebox to keep it warm. It was 2 a.m. No vets were open. I grabbed the acupuncture set I'd bought earlier and prepped a needle. A mental map of feline pressure points flashed in my head. My hands moved with surgical precision. After a few taps, the bleeding stopped. The wounds even started to scab over. I headed for the shower, relieved, never noticing the cat's eyes snap open behind me. 2 golden slit-like pupils fixed on my back. It watched me with a chilling, intelligent focus, its gaze radiating a hunger for blood. This wasn't a stray, it was a beast straight from the underworld. By the time I dried off, things had gone sideways in the game. Elara's transformation was reaching its breaking point. Her Mana Star C was hitting its final critical juncture. Her avatar sat perfectly still, glowing with an intense blue heat. A sapphire magic seal manifested over her stomach, signaling the birth of a perfect tier mana core. The system screamed a warning, "Perfect core detected. The Lich King has noticed you. Purchase the Guardian bundle now." I checked the shop. The basic shield cost $30. I didn't even hesitate before hitting pay. The second the transaction cleared, the digital sky on my screen bled into a deep, sickly crimson haze. Malakor, the demigod of the dead, appeared in the sky, his piercing, maniacal laughter echoing through my speakers. He slammed his palm down, and a massive hand of shadow and blood came crashing toward Elara's sanctuary. I smirked frantically, hammering the display. The lightning fire aegis I'd bought flared up, its glowing runes etching the dirt. It formed a shimmering dome of light, absorbing that bloody handprint. Then a dialogue box appeared on the screen. A system prompt flashed, input the ritual sequence to trigger the counter-strike. My god-tier hand speed was finally useful. I pushed my twitch reflexes to the absolute limit, my heart racing as the timer ticked down towards 0. My fingers became a blur against the keys clicking with mechanical precision. Suddenly the screen erupted in blinding light. Searing barrages of electricity and fire hammered the field. Dozens of thunderbolts slammed into Malakor, charring his face black. His hair stood out like a scorched dandelion. Enraged, the ancient demon unleashed his Stage 3 ultimate move. A colossal green-faced specter of death materialized behind him, its fangs bared and its eyes glowing with malice. It crushed its palms together with bone-chilling force. My elemental shield began to splinter like thin glass under pressure. Elara screamed for me to be careful. I grabbed the Judgment Bolt rune from my premium inventory immediately. I held the voice key and prepared to deliver the final blow with maximum cinematic flair. "You're just a bug on my windshield." I flicked the rune skyward, watching it ascend into the digital clouds. The game's atmosphere turned pitch black, choked by swirling violent thunderheads. I followed the glowing on-screen gesture icons. I traced the sigil with one swift motion. Boom, a massive violet dragon of electricity tore through the sky. It unhinged its glowing jaws and swallowed Malakor's spectral avatar in a single terrifying gulp, ending the threat. Then came 10,000 crashing bolts vaporizing that arrogant self-proclaimed demigod until only grey ash remained on the ground. His health bar vanished instantly. I leaned back and blew the heat off my fingertips with a satisfied grin. $30 for a total wipeout? Worth it. But the noise had drawn some very unwanted NPC attention. Two familiar faces from the Firmament Order appeared: Grandmaster Valerius and his disgraced student, Julian, the former prodigy. Seeing them made my blood boil. I remembered how they had relentlessly bullied Elara in the early chapters. Julian collapsed in the smoking crater, wailing like a lost child toward the heavens with tears streaming down. "Great divinity, my core is ruined. I beg for the holy water of restoration to heal my shattered power. Onishidi." "I'll be your slave forever." A prompt popped up. "Do you wish to grant a divine blessing?" I laughed, though it felt more like a snarl. "You want my help?" I keyed the telepathic scroll. I took a deep, lung-busting breath and roared at my phone. "In your dreams, you pathetic piece of trash. Go find a mirror and see the garbage you are. Now get the hell out of my sight forever." Digital winds howled. That "get out" hit like a sonic boom, turning Valerius and Julian's faces a sickly white. The humiliated duo turned tail and sprinted away like beaten dogs, leaving their pride behind in the dirt. Inside her little cabin, Elara stood frozen, processing the raw protective fury in that booming, godlike voice. She finally let out a soft laugh, her eyes brightening with joy. She pulled out a handcrafted mana crystal bracelet. Kneeling toward the empty air, she whispered, "My lord, please accept this humble token of my protection and love." A system prompt chimed, "Received a special gift from your digital soulmate." I felt a sudden, deep internal warmth, but then an unnatural, heavy exhaustion pulled me under. I felt my consciousness fading away into the dark. I passed out cold. At midnight, the shoebox by the bed creaked open with a slow, chilling sound. The black cat slid out onto the desk. Under the moonlight, its shadow warped into a towering, prehistoric beast. It locked onto my throat and lunged, talons gleaming, just as it prepared to tear my jugular wide open. The black dragon inked on my back roared to life. It opened its eyes, burning with ancient divine fury. A massive obsidian tail materialized from my spine and whipped through the air like a heavy, lethal cable. It swatted that feline horror mid-flight, slamming it back into the shoebox with a bone-shattering thud. The cat vomited blood. Shaking with pure, unadulterated terror, the beast curled into the corner, praying not to be noticed ever again. I just rolled over in my sleep, subconsciously smacking my lips and dreaming of a successful loot drop. I slept like the dead until the alarm screamed. I checked the mobile app before even opening my eyes. Elara had already reached the high-tier apprentice level. I tapped the battle pass and cleared out the rewards. A sharp knock echoed at the front door. I grabbed my crutches and hobbled over to see who it was. The hallway was a ghost town, but two packages sat on the mat. One read, "A gift from Elara." I tore it open to find a crystal bracelet. It felt icy against my skin, carrying that soft, high-end scent Elara always wore, which immediately woke me up. The other box was huge, at least 5 feet long. I sliced the tape. Inside sat a heavy custom-forged longsword etched with dark swirling runes across the steel. The weight was substantial. As I pulled it from the sheath, the blade emitted a terrifyingly cold, sharp shimmer. I dropped a single hair onto the edge. It split instantly. This thing could carve through solid iron like butter. What kind of company mails out actual legendary gear? I gripped the hilt and pulled up the blade codex. I had to do this. Swinging a laundry rack in a cramped room wasn't going to cut it anymore. I needed space. Still in my pajamas and leaning on a crutch, I dragged the rack to the hotel plaza. An old-timer was already there practicing some serious medieval sword drills. I ignored him and focused on my phone. I pulled up the tutorial trying to mimic the opening stance despite the sharp stabs of pain. The old man watched me for a second before he couldn't take it anymore. He marched right over. He swatted my shoulder, barking that my balance was trash and I wasn't using my core at all. Without warning, he kicked my knee into position and shoved my shoulders down with both hands. I nearly yelled in agony, but then I spotted my phone lying on the pavement near my feet. As he corrected my form, the training progress bar on the screen began redlining at a blistering speed. It rocketed from 2% all the way to 13 in seconds. "Master," I breathed, completely stunned. "Please teach me." I ditched the drying rack and gave the man a deep, respectful bow. Old Arthur seemed to enjoy the title. He smiled, helping me fine-tune my lower stance with newfound pride. But as his hands moved to my leg, feeling the jagged, hard tumors under the skin, his expression died. He grabbed my pulse. Within moments, a bead of cold sweat rolled down the old man's forehead. "One foot in the grave," he whispered, his voice trembling. I just gave him a tired, calm smirk. "Good eye," I said. "Late-stage bone cancer. I'm basically living on borrowed time at this point. While I'm still upright, I'm doing everything I was too afraid to try. Just call it an early retirement." He went silent, his eyes heavy with sorrow. He sighed and told me to be here every single morning. Back in my room, I started overthinking. Something about my body felt fundamentally different after that session. Last night, 5 minutes of practice nearly killed me. Today, I went 6 hours without food and felt fine. I wasn't even winded. Plus, I could perfectly recall every complex combat move after seeing it just once. It clicked. The cancer was killing me, but it had somehow overclocked my DNA, unlocking insane potential. I couldn't waste this photographic memory. I pulled up the game and looked at the skill panel. The Holy Spirit technique required a mana circuit opening to reach level 2. It looked expensive. I needed 1,000 reps or a $150 top-up. I didn't have time for the grind. I tapped the screen. The bank confirmed the $150 charge instantly, no hesitation. The icon exploded in golden light as the advanced technique activated, but at that exact moment, Elara experienced a violent power spike. Her mana reserves erupted, her cultivation level soaring through the roof overnight. She hit the peak of the apprentice rank, nearly reaching mage status. Then a sudden crisis hit. Elara's avatar turned a deathly white, drenched in sweat, as a smear of black blood escaped her lips. A massive red warning flashed across the status bar, "Inner Demon Attack." She was losing her mind. Her consciousness was being invaded by the phantoms of those hypocrites from the Firmament Order. Her old mentor Alaric loomed over her with pure fury. "Elara!" he roared in her mind. "You're a disgrace to this order, a traitor with no heart. Even death won't clear your name." Lucius, the eldest brother, just sneered. "A pathetic cripple like you wants to be a mage. Don't be ridiculous." The others closed in, cursing her name and demanding she return the rare potions she had consumed. And behind them all stood Serafina, the innocent little sister who had orchestrated her downfall. She was hiding in the shadows of the girl's mind, giggling softly behind her hand with pure malice. "Oh, Elara," she whispered, "people like you are just trash. Why don't you just disappear forever?" The screen bled with hateful messages, each one a jagged edge carving into Elara's soul, until she was barely holding on. I watched the feed, my blood boiling. These digital cowards were pushing the girl way past her breaking point. I didn't hesitate to activate the Eye of Truth, burning through credits to unlock a high-level spiritual guide. The system was blunt. To shatter her internal trauma, she had to return to her roots and sever those old ties. I grabbed a bottle of epic-tier heart-shielding brew, forced it down her throat, and immediately initiated the recovery sequence. The interface split into two distinct views. Her thin tunic was completely drenched, clinging to her trembling, sweat-slicked frame. I wasn't there to enjoy the view. My focus remained entirely on the glowing mana circuits pulsating across her chest. My fingers danced across the glass, weaving raw arcane energy into shimmering silver needles with the precision of a surgeon. Each strike landed perfectly. Inside her mind, skeletal hands were dragging her down into a bottomless, silent void. Out of nowhere, the sharp ring of a drawn blade sliced through the gloom like a bolt of lightning. A radiant flash obliterated the shadows, turning those hideous ghouls to dust. She glimpsed a dark-clad savior with snowy hair. He stood tall, a legendary sword in hand, with a massive ebony dragon coiling around him and shaking the sky. "My lord," she whispered, her eyes snapping open as the nightmare finally dissolved into the light. The shadows vanished, leaving her gasping on the bed. A strange, soothing warmth began radiating through her core. Spectral hands of energy massaged her muscles, easing the tension. She knew exactly who was responsible for saving her life. Her face flushed a deep crimson, nearly matching her hair. Just as I was about to log off the session, a heavy pounding shook the cabin door. "Elara, open this door right now." "I know you're in there." It was Lucius, that arrogant snake who'd tracked her magical scent from the previous battle. He sensed the high-level residual energy lingering inside the room and grew suspicious of who she was hiding. When she didn't answer, he raised his staff, gathering heat to blast the wooden entrance into 1,000 splinters. A massive fireball formed. Suddenly, 3 tactical intervention options popped up on my phone's display. Choice 1, obliterate him instantly. Choice 2, crush his spirit with a massive surge of pure intimidation. Choice 3, burst his eardrums. The game wouldn't even let me pay to kill him yet. He was protected. That meant the bastard had to survive, so Elara could handle him herself. I slammed the second option without hesitation. Outside, before the fireball could even fly, a mountain's worth of gravity slammed down, pinning Lucius to the dirt. A sickening pop echoed through the clearing as his kneecaps hit the floor. He let out a strangled, agonizing cry. The tiles buckled under the pressure. He was flattened, his face shoved into the mud, unable to even twitch. Blind terror took over. He realized the god-tier master was inside and began sobbing like a child for mercy. "Forgive me, I'm Lucius from the Crimson Spire. I didn't know your excellency was here. Please spare me." I activated the voice link and roared a single deafening command, "Shut up!" A gale-force wind erupted from the house. The door slammed open, then shut. The shockwave tossed Lucius 50 feet away, leaving him crumpled and coughing up blood. Elara stepped out, having changed into a clean gown. She looked lethal, her gaze as cold as a winter blade. Lucius clutched his broken ribs and crawled back, trying to hide his cowardice behind a pathetic fake smile. "Sister, I'm here to bring you home. Once we're back at the Order, we can fix everything that happened. I'll spend every cent I have to replace your core." The audacity of this thief to act so holy was sickening. "Lucius, I'm going back to the Firmament Order tomorrow," Elara said, her voice dropping to a low, deadly tone. She emphasized every syllable, "to bury the past forever." Lucius felt his soul freeze under her empty, silent stare. He scrambled away like a beaten dog. I opened my inventory and pulled out a legendary relic I'd looted. It was the moon-hidden longsword, a blade taken from the corpse of a fallen god. I gifted it to her. "This is yours. Burn their legacy down." Right as I finished, my real-life phone started vibrating with a call. An unknown number appeared. The man on the line introduced himself as the head producer of a massive show. "Is this Silas?" he asked, referring to the reality program Wilderness Frontiers. "I've got a proposal for you. That video of your Pikes Peak climb went viral. We want you as a secret guest for our next episode. It's a trek through Blackwood Mountain. Say yes and $100,000 will be wired to you tonight." With my bank account sitting at 0 and rent overdue, I signed that digital contract without a second thought. Clutching the windfall, I hailed a taxi and sped toward the clinic, praying this cash could buy a miracle. I hoped for a few more years, but the specialist just stared at my x-rays and let out a heavy breath. "The malignancy has reached your brain and marrow, kid. We are past the point of no return. It is terminal. Spend what you have and live while you can." Those words felt like a guillotine dropping. I stepped onto the street. A dark laugh escaped me. "If 100,000 cannot save my soul, I will drop it all on a virtual one." Noon the following day, the interface flickered to life. Elara was there. Clad in snow-white silk, with her lunar blade drawn, she stood solitary before the massive gates of the Firmament Order. High Wizard Alaric stood at the vanguard. The 4 disciples trailed him like shadows, while that fake Serafina cowered behind Lucius. From his high throne, Alaric glared at the girl and bellowed with rage. "Do you admit to your crimes?" Elara's knuckles turned white as she squeezed her weapon. Her voice was ice as she declared her total innocence, sending a hush over the entire courtyard. "How does a broken exile dare challenge a high wizard? The sheer audacity!" Buo Alaric unleashed a crushing wave of spiritual energy at her. Just as the pressure peaked, My display glitched out and a gold notification popped up. You must finalize your avatar to proceed. I flipped out. I had dumped a fortune into this account already. Now they want a fresh build. I hit the cash shop, which was loaded with premium vanity items. Silver elf hair, $150. Purchased. Obsidian dragon armor, $600. Purchased. Ultra particle effects. I went on a spree. Within moments, a legendary mystic warrior with silver locks appeared. Cloaked in dark silk and wreathed in a phantom dragon, he looked like a god. Then came the heavy hitters, instant power surges, master level boosters. Archmage status for $150, ultimate deity power for $1,500, $30,000 for a permanent buff. I checked my bank balance, $100,000. No second thoughts. I slammed the buy button on the deity pack and punched in my pin. $30,000 vanished from my life. Thunder cracked. My avatar exploded with the blinding celestial radiance that tore through the sky. A tidal wave of divine presence surged across the digital world of Ethelgard. Alaric's pathetic aura disintegrated instantly. I tapped the world chat megaphone icon. My gaze went cold as I growled into the mic while I stand here. Nobody touches her. Two massive energy fronts slammed into each other with a roar. I steamrolled Alaric's power, pinning his entire entourage face first into the dirt. They turned purple, gasping for air. I kept the voice channel open, sounding like a vengeful god. I am only here to balance the scales. Harm one strand of her hair and I will erase this sect. The elder sage grabbed Alaric, screaming at him to back down before they were all slaughtered. With the masters shaking, Elara marched up to Draven and tossed a stack of documents proving his crimes. His gambling debts and sordid encounters were laid bare. She slapped the papers against his chest. Humiliated, Draven lunged at her with a jagged blade. Elara simply unsheathed her lunar steel. She blurred into a flash of silver. With a metallic snap, Draven's weapon shattered. He shrieked as a jagged wound opened across his ribs, spraying the stones red. He slumped over unconscious, one down. Cedric was next, the snake who conspired to frame her for treason. She invoked the divine trial to prove her truth, nearly getting fried by a lightning bolt. I hammered the buy button on a legendary elixir to heal her instantly. Cedric was hauled away in chains. They silenced him permanently for his lies. Another traitor broken. Kalen was up the hack who'd poisoned the well. I'd shelled out for abyssal fire toxin. Swapped his pills and forced them down. A triple dose of liquid fire ignited instantly. His eyes went white before he hit the floor. Second brother officially crippled. Then Lucius stepped up, using the same dirty trick he used to break Elara. Elara's gaze was lethal ice. Her Moonveiler blade became a blur of silver lightning. 49 strikes rained down. Clang Lucius's sword was ripped right out of his grip. The shock forced him to his knees. The cold edge of her blade kissed his throat. The golden boy was finished. Watching Elara shred her past felt like pure justice. I exhaled a long, jagged breath. Finally, that felt incredibly satisfying. Best $30,000 I ever spent. Then the doorbell rang. I grabbed my crutch. I limped to the door. A courier in a sharp suit handed over a heavy black case. "Mr. Silas," he asked, looking official. "Custom gear from Wilderness Ventures." I signed the tablet and popped the latches. A sleek obsidian neural helmet sat inside. The manual read brain-computer interface. My pulse hammered against my ribs. Could this thing really pull me in? I didn't hesitate. I strapped the rig on. I didn't care if it fried my brain. I dumped $30,000 into this. I wasn't letting it go to waste. Vision went pitch black for a heartbeat. Then the world tore wide open. Elara was standing right there. I could see the tiny veins in her neck. The wind carried the scent of dry sand. It was a perfect, terrifying recreation. I was actually standing in the Firmament Plaza. This wasn't a game anymore. Lucius was trembling on the ground, ready to shatter his own magical core. Suddenly a roar shook the heavens. "You ungrateful brat! I built you to be a god, and you'd throw it away to the dungeon." Alaric had finally intervened. The old demigod was hell-bent on saving his favorite puppet. Playing favorites, huh? Always some excuse for the elite. Red warning text flooded my vision. Projection active. Free movement enabled. I sneered at the sky. Time to make an entrance. My demigod aura exploded, rattling the world. Nobody touches her today. Not while I'm here. "Alaric, you old mutt. Don't say I didn't give you a warning." Silence fell like a hammer. Alaric gripped his staff, his face a mask of rage. His power hit like a tidal wave. He whispered to his guard, calling me a bluff. He thought I was a ghost. Space began to warp. I took a heavy step forward. Black robes, white hair, and a sword forged from shadow and bone. A massive black dragon phantom roared behind me, coiling around my blade as lightning struck. Elara turned, staring at me with wide eyes, completely forgetting to breathe. "Back off, girl," I growled. "It's time for some blood." I looked like a god, but inside I was absolutely losing my mind. Skill bars lit up in my vision. How do I even steer this thing? I just stared at the icons, then combat tutorial initializing. Time froze solid. A holographic mirror and a training dummy blinked into existence. Neural mapping, thought to action. I looked at my avatar and willed a strike. The dummy didn't just break, it vaporized. The astral blade codex burned into my mind. I thought it and the sword sang. I became a streak of white-hot lightning. I tore through the target in an instant, then blinked back to the start. My movements were pure liquid flow. So lethal, it gave me goosebumps. My God. Incredible. The tutorial finished and reality snapped back into place. I zeroed in on Alaric and Lucius up ahead. "You just love sticking your nose in, don't you, old man? Well, today, I am making you an offering to the gods." My mind locked onto the 10th move of the Astral Codex Silver Moon Rising. My dark blade cleared the scabbard by a mere fraction, the raw pressure shredding the air until it shrieked. Witness my power. Before the great hall, a shimmering lunar sphere manifested from the stone floor. Bathed in that silver light, I delivered a single stroke. The clouds above split like torn silk. Pure malice fixated on Alaric. He snarled, throwing up his ultimate defense, the galaxy shield. He tried to muscle through it. Pathetic. A flickering candle versus the moon. One flash, and the orb shattered. A million punctures riddled the courtyard. Alaric was a shredded, bloody mess. He propped himself up on a staff that was now just junk, shaking violently in his own gore. I stepped from the light, ignored the wreck of a man, and walked straight to Lucius. "You want to end this yourself, or do you need me to do it for you?" He turned ghost white. His throat tightened as he gulped. I will do it myself," he stammered. He slammed a hand into his gut. A dull thud signaled his energy core imploding. He collapsed, clutching his ruined center. He thrashed in the dirt like a wounded mutt. I moved on, heading for Serafina. She was trembling. This manipulative piece of work played the victim eyes, brimming with fake tears. But her interface told the real story: 347-years-old mid-tier demigod, closeted succubus royalty, a legendary predator in disguise. Even worse, I had spent so much effort looking cool that my energy tank was bone dry. I stared her down. "Give me Elara's water core. Now." Serafina hesitated. If she fought back, her cover was blown for good. She was trapped. Calculating the risks, she played the martyr, sticking out her chest in a pathetic display of innocence. She looked away, sighing. "My lord can take whatever he wants." So I grabbed it all. I lunged forward with zero mercy. A prompt flashed, and I did not blink. I snatched the water core, then dug deeper, pulling her secret earth and wood cores with it. I bagged the loot and gave her a look that said, "I know exactly what you are." She was paralyzed. Not even a legend should have seen through her demonic veil. She pegged me as some high lord of the abyss who had clocked her secret. She forgot how to breathe. Enemies crushed. Vengeance served. Loot secured. But I was running on fumes. "Elara, we are leaving," I muttered. Leaving, a raspy, ancient voice creaked from the shadows behind me. Out of nowhere, a crone in white robes appeared by Alaric, propped up by a dragon-headed cane. She did not give off a ripple of energy, but my skin crawled. She struck the earth with her staff. Azure waves pulsed outward. Every high-ranking elder hit the pavement with a heavy thud. The guild's secret weapon, a true legendary powerhouse, the High Priestess herself. Beat the kids and Grandma shows up. These damn story tropes never fail to kick me when I am down. I kept my face in the shadows, fighting the urge to shake. "So you are the big bad lurking in the basement," the crowd hissed in shock. A mere demigod, trash-talking a legend. Suicidal. I knew I was screwed, so I started screaming at my internal interface like a maniac. "Upgrade me, max my level to peak legend, system locked. Funds insufficient." "Damn it, I am dead meat." The High Priestess let out a jagged, furious laugh. A massive six-armed stone titan towered behind her, blotting out the very sun. "Crisis alert, High Priestess is enraged. Choose your survival path. Multiple selections enabled. Option 1, $5 for an emergency warp scroll. Option 2, $15 for a 30-second legendary power-up trial. Option 3, I dropped $30 just to fix my charisma, buying that look of awe in her eyes. Why choose when you can pay To win, my phone chimed, $50 gone. Suddenly, a violent, raw energy exploded from within me, shattering the ceiling of my power and catapulting me into the ranks of the elite. My obsidian dragon spirit let out a deafening howl, physically crushing her stone guardian under its weight. The high priestess froze, eyes locked onto mine. With my magnetism now off the charts, her cold pride vanished instantly. She looked at me trembling. Zephyr. She thought I was a ghost, the man she had lost. I didn't let her linger in the fantasy. I just stared her down and spoke one icy line. Our debt is paid. Goodbye. I snapped an elite rift scroll between my fingers. Seizing Elara's arm, the world blurred into static as we blinked out of existence, barely escaping that death trap. Guiding her with a mental flick, we mounted a hovering blade. The sensory detail in this rigged game was unsettlingly vivid. Up high, the biting winds whipped at my skin. I glanced back to see Elara struggling to breathe, her face distorted by the sheer velocity. A notification flashed across my vision. New quest: secure Elara, a position within a rival faction. They wanted me to babysit her in some sanctuary. Wonderful. I touched down in the capital and ducked into the first dive bar I saw. My session was nearing its limit. Looking at her standing there so small and fragile, I knew I needed a graceful exit. She looked like a lost child. Listen, I began crafting a lie. My true form is currently engaged in a lethal struggle. I'm fighting a demon king. A lethal rot consumes me, and this projection is the only way I can reach you. Well, stage 4 Cancer is a demon king of sorts. Elara's face went white. She collapsed onto the floor, trembling. Sobbing, she looked up at me. Master, I will master the forbidden arts. I will find a cure for you, I swear it. I reminded her that her fire-based powers would literally explode any potion she tried to brew. It was a dead end. A tragic smile crossed her lips. Before I could blink, she moved with a terrifying singular focus. She shattered her own internal energy core, bleeding out her power in seconds. If my gift is a curse, then I will cast it away for you. I went cold. A sharp physical ache bloomed in my chest. This code was too perfect. That look of pure sacrifice felt too real to be programmed. Reaching into my inventory, I handed her the Abyssal Tides Manual, a legendary water-spec scroll. She peeked at it through her tears. Are you accepting me? She whispered. I cleared my throat. As of now, you are my sole-chosen disciple. My direct heir. She immediately poured a cup of cheap tavern tea, offering it with the reverence of a holy ritual. I took a sip. Then I pinned the defensive talismans she had given me onto the door frame and prepared to leave. I hit the exit button as I yanked the VR headset off. A heavy thud echoed against my bedroom door. I pulled the door open. 2 priority shipping boxes sat in the hallway. I ripped them apart like a madman. Inside were 10 humming glowing talismans and a steaming cup of tea that smelled of ancient forests. The loot had crossed over. I drained the cup and the digital clock in my mind started flatlining before resetting. The timer stabilized. I looked at my shattered leg encased in heavy plaster and began tearing the cast away. The bone was whole. I grabbed a blade and sliced my palm. The skin knit back together before the first drop fell. I was something more than human now. My kitten, a literal hellhound cub, stared at the runes on my window and whimpered in fear. I ignored the beast. I threw some instant rice together, fueled by a frantic, desperate energy. I dumped the food for the cat, threw a bag together, and sprinted for the nearest airport. The terminal was packed. Within seconds, I realized every single person was staring at me in stunned silence. I checked the mirror. I looked like a god. My skin was flawless, and I radiated a terrifying ethereal magnetism. Walking down the aisle, the crew was practically tripping over themselves just to get within my personal space. My seatmate sat there trembling, her face flushed crimson until she finally thrust her phone toward me with shaking hands. She was begging for my handle. My mind was still stuck in the game world, blurring the lines of reality. I let out a dry, arrogant chuckle. Please, we are on a plane. My flying blade makes this tin can look like a turtle. She recoiled in horror. Back in the digital realm. Elara arrived at the square, her aura resonating with the pure essence of the deep ocean. The crowd parted in awe. A high-ranking healer from the prestigious Jade Valley caught her scent immediately. She escorted Elara to a VIP chamber where the guild's stunning successor waited in the shadows. Behind the crimson silk veil, the woman whispered, "Tell me, child, who claims to be your master? Are you a man or a woman?" I looked the intake officer in the eye and told the truth. A man. The air in that plush reception suite didn't just chill, it turned to ice. "Get out!" A wall of kinetic force slammed into my chest, tossing me onto the street. The clerk mouthed a guilty apology. Word is the Lady of the Valley was shattered by a man long ago. Now not a single male is allowed within 50 miles. Any man desperate enough to join must surrender his manhood first. I stood on the curb, the gravity of it all sinking in. My only hope for a cure was studying medicine behind those walls. That is when a greasy wizard, caked in makeup, blocked my path. He reeked of cheap perfume. "Oh, did the mean lady kick you out, little sister? Why not join our joyous sect? We have much better ways to practice magic together." I knew them, they were the lowest scum around. I didn't say a word, my expression hardening into ice while my fingers fumbled for the lethal scrolls hidden in my pack. The pale wizard's grin turned predatory as he closed the distance, his eyes scanning me like a piece of meat. "You can't say no to me today," he hissed. I gripped my scroll ready to blow us both to hell before he touched me. "Hold it!" A lazy shout drifted down from the rooftops. With a thunderous boom, a massive hunk of black iron fell from the sky like a meteor. The steel slab was wider than my torso, slamming into the cobblestones right between me and those cultist bastards. A gust of wind smelling of high-proof rum hit me. Perched atop the blade was a woman, her face hidden behind a dark veil. She sat there casually, one leg draped over the other, her scuffed boot tapping against the steel. Her leather flask clinked against the hilt. She took a long swig, let out a massive, unrefined belch, and looked down at the thugs with pure disdain. She glared at the cultists, her voice thick with liquor, but sharp as a razor. "This little bird belongs to us. Now get the hell out of here before I lose my temper." She rolled off the blade, her movements fluid despite the obvious sway in her step. She grabbed that massive hunk of iron with one hand and twirled it like a baton. The pale wizard stumbled back, terrified. He turned ashen. Realizing he was staring down a master-rank sorceress, he drew his dagger anyway, trying to save face. "You're trying to steal our prize. Let's see if you've got the guts to back that up. How about we see what you're made of instead?" A voice like dry parchment whispered from the shadows right behind him, a gnarled hand looking more like a dead branch than flesh clamped onto the wizard's blade. He spun around, eyes wide. A skeletal old man in a half-mask stood there, bearing a row of rotting teeth. He tightened his grip. With a sickening screech of metal, the tempered steel of the wizard's sword crumpled like wet paper in his hand. The wizard froze, paralyzed by the old man's aura. He looked around for his crew, but they were long gone. 3 more figures in black stood in a line, each holding a heavy bulging sack of stolen loot over their shoulders. His goons were already face down in the dirt. "Quit stalling," one of the men barked. "Bag the last of it and let's move." A 5th shadow dropped from the roof, his belt clinking with stolen trinkets. The wizard's eyes nearly popped. The newcomer was carrying his own boss's signature blade. His entire sect had been raided. He fell to his knees, forcing a pathetic, trembling smile as he begged for his life. The old man just let out a cruel cackle. "Artifacts, crystals, bags, empty your pockets, boy. Everything you've got goes on the ground, or you lose the hands that hold them. Move." They didn't even leave him his coat. Stripped to his rags, the wizard fled into the alleyway like a whipped dog. I stood there trembling. These people were clearly more dangerous than the cult, yet something felt different. They were ruthless, sure, but there was no bloodlust. The whole thing felt more like a professional business transaction. The old man turned to me, his grin widening. "You've got some spark, kid. How'd you like to join a real crew?" I can't," I stammered. "I have to get into the valley to study alchemy." The drunken woman laughed, stumbling toward me. "We do plenty of alchemy, honey, mostly the explosive kind." I tried to back away, but the man on the roof pulled off his mask and shouted, "Enough with the games! You're looking at the firmament order." The others unmasked, revealing the woman's flushed, beautiful face. She winked at me, looking mischievous. "Sweetheart, you just watched us rob a whole sect. You know our faces now. That means you're coming with us, whether you like it or not." Elara's breath hitched. Those men were wearing the severed steel emblems right on their belts. Yet they claimed to be firmament. Suddenly the world tilted, a drunk woman heaved her onto a flying blade. We pierced the sky wind, roaring like a beast. I instinctively clung to her, heart pounding. Then the fear vanished. These people, just like my mentor, flew Rono windshields, just pure power. At the Ascension Tower, Elena, the heir of Emerald Star Valley, finally woke up. She gripped her throbbing head, surveying a room full of mages, knocked cold by sleeping gas. Her storage bag was gone, her staff, her jewels, she'd been stripped of everything. Scrawled on the wall was a mocking firmament tag. Elena let out a cold, dangerous laugh. If the firmament order really did this, she'd personally eat the filth off the floor. Only the severed steel crew was missing. Typical, those penniless bastards were trying to frame their rivals. Meanwhile, I was in a town car, headed toward the set of a major reality show. That spirit tea Elara gave me was magic. My terminal bone cancer had vanished overnight. I wasn't just walking, I was evolving. My body felt electric, my skin literally glowing with health. I radiated a sacred, otherworldly energy. Even the driver couldn't stop looking at me. "Man," he whispered for the third time, "you look absolutely legendary." He slapped the wheel. "I've driven A-listers, but you make them look like total amateurs. You're like a warrior saint. Pure, natural perfection. That idol Zach you're filming with tonight, the one the fans worship, he's garbage compared to you. Just watch out. He's got a massive ego and a nasty streak." I just smirked. I was a dying man who'd seen the void. Why would an actor scare me? If he wants a fight, I'll give him one. We pulled up to Blackwood Mountain for the shoot. Zach the Golden Boy arrived with a phalanx of bodyguards acting like he owned the mountain. While the crew prepped for the night hike, he was busy posing for the cameras. "Sup, I'm Zach. Keep the lights on me, I'm the only thing worth seeing here. I look good doing anything." The livestream comments were a sea of obsessive heart emojis. The director was sweating bullets. It was 9 p.m. and the show was already live. I was the mystery guest, still waiting in the shadows for my cue. Zach sneered at the camera. "Where's our VIP making us wait? He must be a real diva." "He better be worth it," his fans typed. Then I spoke from the darkness. "Am I late?" My voice echoed off the cliffside. Every lens in the place swiveled toward me. The spotlight found me, shaved head leaning on a pair of crutches. I stood in the mountain wind, challenging the night. Half my face was bathed in moonlight, looking like a literal angel. The other half was hidden in shadow, dark and dangerous. The set went dead silent. The director's jaw dropped. The word handsome didn't even begin to describe it. The stream chat froze, then erupted. Holy mother of... Who is that? "He's incredible, Zach," who I'm officially switching sides. "That bald brother is on another level. That aura, he looks like a god." The director's eyes lit up like neon signs. He practically sprinted to shake my hand. Zach's face turned a nasty shade of gray. Jealous, he pointed at my crutches and mocked me. "Seriously, a night hike and you bring a cripple? Are we supposed to babysit him? He's just here to leech off my fame. This isn't a hospital ward, director." The silence was deafening. Even the live stream went dead as the world watched him spiral. I didn't get angry. I just gave the camera a calm, effortless smile. "You're right. I'm a burden. I'm Silas, a terminal bone cancer patient whose story is almost over. The clock is ticking down. This could be my final shot at reaching the peak of Blackwood Mountain. Thanks for being part of my last ride. We're on the move now." A chilling breeze swept through the pass, and several of the makeup girls immediately broke down in tears. Stella, the nation's sweetheart who's hiking with us, had eyes that were already puffy and bloodshot. The live chat is losing its mind, a non-stop flood of mad respect, and I'm tearing up. Meanwhile, everyone's trashing Zach. His manager is having a meltdown backstage, frantically texting him to apologize to me. Zach was practically vibrating with rage, grinding his teeth. He couldn't believe a top-tier idol like himself had to say sorry to a guy in a wheelchair. He was convinced I was just faking for clout. He swore he'd expose me during the trek. As night fell, the climb began and Zach insisted on leading just to hog the spotlight. He pushed a brutal pace, leading the pack on a sprint up the jagged, pitch-black mountain trail. He was desperate to see me collapse and prove I was a fraud. Even the other guys were gasping for air like dying fish. They were huffing like exhausted dogs. Zach finally paused, drenched in sweat and looking completely spent. He sneered, "Can you two grown men even handle this? Look at Silas. The guy can't even walk, and he hasn't broken a sweat while keeping up." It was a total snake move. He sounded like he was praising me, but he was really trying to get everyone to doubt my condition. Naturally, every camera turned my way. I just leaned back on my crutch, acting casual. I was perfectly calm, my heart rate steady as a rock. They had no idea my body was surging with raw mutated power. That spiritual tea had completely rewired my system from the inside out. Forget climbing, I felt like the mountain belonged to me. Right now, I honestly feel like I could take down a bull with one punch. I just gave them a big, goofy grin. Stella looked absolutely heartbroken, convinced I was just putting on a brave face while in total agony. She thought I was suffering just to avoid being a burden. Suddenly, the director tried to spice things up. "Stay sharp, everyone," he whispered with fake mystery. "There's an old legend about the shadow wolf of Blackwood. Supposedly, it stands on two legs and taps you on the shoulder. If you turn around, it takes your head off in one bite." Zach just laughed it off. "I'm 1.9 meters tall. What kind of wolf is reaching my shoulder?" "Unless it's over 2.5 meters tall, I'm not worried." He thought it was all a big joke. Before he could even finish his thought, a bone-chilling howl echoed through the entire valley. The forest went dead silent. Zach froze his entire body, turning stiff as a board. He felt a massive heavy weight drop onto his shoulders, sharp claws digging in. He panicked, tripped, and went tumbling back toward the group. Everyone aimed their flashlights and screamed. It was a monster, a mutated wolf, over 2.5 meters long. It was covered in matted black fur that looked as sharp as steel needles. Its head was freakishly huge, with a mouth wide enough to swallow a car tire whole. Those glowing green eyes were locked on us, thick slime dripping from its fangs. The entire crew was paralyzed with terror. I was the only one who reacted with a simple wow. Honestly, it just looked so out of place. Compared to the demons I've seen in games, this thing looked like a radioactive freak show that crawled out of a sewer. Our guide started screaming, "Nobody move! Get back to the trucks slowly." One of the starlets shoved Zach forward, yelling for him to do something. "Aren't you supposed to be some elite warrior trainee? Fight it." Zach just started hyperventilating and screaming. "Are you insane? It's a literal monster. I'm not fighting that thing." His screaming just pissed the wolf off. It dropped to all fours and blurred into a black shadow, charging straight for us. People scattered in every direction, then a second wolf lunged out from the dark brush. The main crew bolted for the vehicles, but me, Stella, and the cameraman were totally cut off. Stella closed her eyes, waiting for the end, while the cameraman's hands shook so hard he nearly dropped his gear. The stream was going ballistic, calling 911. I remained steady as a rock and stepped into the gap. I stood in front of them, dropping into a perfect combat stance. I gripped my crutch like a weapon, eyes full of cold disdain. I even beckoned the beast forward with one finger. They really had no idea who they were dealing with. I once shattered the gates of heaven with a single blow. Now this mangy mutt dares to snarl at me. The beast roared and charged for the throat. I gripped my crutch like a broadsword and swung. Snap. The wood splintered instantly. For a heartbeat, the silence was deafening. I looked back at Stella wearing a mask of doomed bravery. "Don't look," I choked out. "The storm is getting too fierce." "Get moving!" We scrambled away as the monster stood there, dazed by my pathetic defense. Then, fueled by pure shame, it lunged for my neck with gore-stained fangs. In that split second, I stepped on thin air and tripped over a jagged stone, losing my balance entirely. I slammed onto the dirt. My pockets emptied, scattering ancient scrolls across the forest floor as I fell. My right leg flailed out in a blind, desperate reflex. Thud! That massive, lucky kick caught the monster right in the chin. The creature didn't even have a chance to whimper. Its jaw disintegrated instantly, and the sheer accidental force sent the beast flying like a ragdoll. It plowed through several trees before vanishing into the brush. Stella and the cameraman rushed to my side. They hauled me up, and we hauled tail toward a derelict ranger station, slamming the door behind us. I slumped against the entrance, guarding the threshold. If things go south, hit the window. My life is forfeit. I will hold this door to the end. Stella started sobbing at my fake heroics. The cameraman didn't miss a beat, keeping the red light right on my sweating face. Meanwhile, out in the weeds, the mangled beast struggled up. Agony had pushed its primitive brain into a demonic frenzy. Its muscles swelled like a balloon fur, bristling as its glowing eyes turned a hellish, pulsating crimson. It caught my scent and vowed to shred me. The monster charged from the shadows, moving like a streak of lightning, and stepped directly onto a talisman I dropped. One final howl. Kaboom! A massive bolt of lightning tore through the sky, vaporizing the spot where the beast stood. 5 minutes later, a young girl in a blazer clutching a spear approached the smoking crater. That was Trinity, an undercover low-level monster slayer. She'd been tracking a different beast entirely. Back at the trucks, Zach's leg was a total mess from a bite, leaving him a permanent invalid. She had finished that wolf off. Now staring at the blackened, broken carcass in the smoldering pit, she caught her breath, stunned. One punch to break the jaw. And then divine lightning. This is the work of a high-level master. She retrieved a scorched talisman. Her fingers shook as she felt the raw, holy power still hum against her skin. Not even the elite hunters in the States could forge something this potent. She began tracking the prints to the old shack and pushed the door open. She saw me, the student, and the cameraman, to stay undercover. She played the part of a terrified schoolgirl. Oh man, I am totally freaked out. Is the monster still out there? I looked at the burnt scrap in her hand. It was one of mine. I pointed a finger. Hey kid, where did you get that paper? Her pulse spiked, but she kept her face stone cold. What a paper! This is just my lucky bookmark. She was lying through her teeth. I didn't push it. Instead, I reached deep into my jacket pocket. I produced 5 more of the exact same slips and fanned them out. Nice try. That is my property. See, I have plenty. Trinity's jaw nearly hit the floor. She stared at me like I was a god. The footage from the mountain exploded online the next morning. Zach's reputation was trashed and he ended up in a psych ward. Stella became a national sweetheart. As for me, the video of me looking bored while facing down a demon with nothing but a broken stick earned me the title of the country's ultimate badass. I became a viral meme. Trinity wouldn't leave me alone. During the hike down, she kept throwing out cryptic hunter slang to test me. Winter is coming, she whispered. I told her to put on some damn thermal underwear. The dark night has no end, she tried. I just told her I had a flashlight. My blank expression baffled her. Was I a stone-cold pro or just some lucky fluke? She blew a fortune on the adjacent suite just to investigate my secrets. She prepped for a stakeout, but I was too busy reeling from police questioning. I raced back to plug in my phone. Elara had been snatched. They lied about her destination, rerouting her to that high-end medical valley. A paradise for elite healers, it seemed like she had finally struck gold. The screen flickered to life, but there were no flowers, only cold silence. No mythical creatures either, just a landscape littered with broken masonry. Rotted pillars stood among the rubble as a haunting wind moaned. The screen flashed a cold alert. Your digital companion, Elara Digembe, has joined the Severed Steel Order, the poorest guild in existence. I stared at the digital junkyard, my heart hammering in my chest. Where the hell is she? This place is a poverty-stricken nightmare. Where is the support bot? I am demanding a mental health refund. She did not complain, though. Balin just laughed while stroking his beard. He bragged about mugging people, then plotted his next ruinous heist. Elara looked horrified, but those scammers saw her raw, untapped potential. Her perfect water stats made those greedy old sharks salivate instantly. Defiant, she skipped the elite peaks for a desolate, lonely monument. At the summit, she timidly asked if they knew a man named Silas. The old shark lied, calling me the guild's legendary founding mentor. He claimed I was slaying demons. She believed every single word. She followed her senior sister unaware. They basically slept in the dirt. They passed bums napping on turtles and hobos under frozen waterfalls. It was pure laziness. She finally picked a rotting summit shack. Meanwhile, I was inhaling chicken, listening to her voice through my phone. Master, I miss you. I am not at the valley anymore, she whispered. I am at your old guild. They said you are the ancient founder. I was floored. Me, the founder of that digital trash heap. That geezer is a pro liar, but I will play along for now. But that medical valley, they will pay for tossing my student aside. A pop-up appeared. Your girl's house is a dump. Want to fix it. $10 for a renovation. I scoffed at the cheap price. I am no beggar. I tapped pay without a second thought. Then I saw the real cost, $1,500 for mana shields. $150 for a hut. It is just a predatory money pit. I lost it spamming the purchase button, hemorrhaging my rent money. Shields bought. Armor equipped. Anything to keep her safe from them. I leveled the shack to level 2 as golden lights blinded me. The hovel vanished, replaced by a sprawling luxury timber estate. Beautiful tiles, extra rooms, and a high-end chef's kitchen appeared. In-game, Elara collapsed, her legs shaking as she viewed the luxury. She gripped her dress, face burning red, begging me to stop. Master, please, it is too much. I cannot accept all of this. She's just overwhelmed. My girl deserves the best, no matter the cost. I flicked my wrist, manifesting 10 shimmering plots of arcane soil for her as the earth groaned. The wasteland outside buckled, shifting into 10 glowing patches of fertile ground before my very eyes. She collapsed onto her knees, whispering about her impending stardom, while I smugly swiped the screenshot. I tossed $3 toward a clearance silk nightgown, warping it straight onto her mattress. A chime rang. Objective met. Rewards shipped 1 single stalk of legendary 9-light elven weed. plus a tub of primordial Gaia Earth. Suddenly, a fresh notification pulsed on my screen. 30 days until the ruins unlock. Elara's survival odds 0%. Time to step up my game. A heavy thud echoed from the hallway. I pulled the door open to investigate the noise. I found a stack of grimy boxes. Inside was a container of neon-toxic-looking sludge. A shriveled sprout poked out of the mess. Doubting the prize, I pulled up a scanner app. Result: common garden weed. Great. Seriously, these developers are trolling me. This trash is a joke. Then I spotted a slip labeled Judgment Thunder beneath the dirt. The note warned about thieving beasts. I stuck the sticker on and tossed the pot onto the ledge. I headed for coffee, oblivious that Grim, the mangy stray I'd rescued, was watching from the couch. He was salivating, eyes glued to that shriveled plant. The moment he crept toward it, everything changed. The sticker hissed, unleashing jagged bolts of white-hot electricity, a crushing godlike weight. Bestiesi filled the room, pinning the cat down. Grim bolted back to the cushions, shaking like a leaf. The beast's mind raced. What kind of monster uses celestial lightning to guard a dying weed? One touch and I am toast, he thought. Meanwhile, I sat down to eat, totally clueless. Scrolling through my feed, I saw a report about some massive wolf mauling tourists up on Blackwood. Some talking head claimed it was just a spicy coyote, said it was not even that dangerous. Safe, please. It shredded a jeep. I squinted at the footage of the fried, blackened carcass. I fished some wrinkled Stormflame papers from my pocket. That wolf's injuries looked familiar. Lightning strikes from above, but this thing's leg had been vaporized from the ground up. It looked like a landmine hit it. Suddenly my heart hammered against my ribs as the truth hit. I did not kill that beast with a stick. It stepped on the rune I dropped when I panicked. I snatched my stash, threw on a coat, and bolted outside. Time to see what these things do. Seconds after I cleared the door, a face appeared at the window in the hall. Trinity, the pro hunter from 419, was clinging to the bricks like a lizard waiting for her opening. She vaulted inside the moment I was gone, her eyes homing in on the plant on the sill. Through her enhanced vision, the weed's veins revealed the architecture of a celestial palace. The patterns were ancient and pulsing with raw power, but her awe was cut short by a sound. A lethal, guttural snarl vibrated in her ear. My cat was suddenly perched right beside her. Grim stared her down with the cold, calculating gaze of an absolute executioner. He swiped a paw through the air. A shock wave of void-black energy detonated in the room. Trinity was launched through the glass before she could even gasp, cratering into the metal awning below. 3 ribs snapped like dry twigs. She scrambled up, coughing, her face pale with pure dread. That was no house pet. Its mere presence had paralyzed her. This house was a death trap. She needed to call the guild now. Grim just huffed, shot a nervous look at my sticker. He went back to playing the dumb kitty role. Meanwhile, I was standing in a junkyard. I gripped the flame rune, my heart racing, and took a deep, shaky breath. I visualized the fire and chucked it with everything I had. Hurry like the law. Avada Kedavra, I yelled. The paper fluttered 2 feet and landed face down in the mud. I dusted it off for round 2. Get them, Hadouken. Blast it. Another dud. This rune is nothing but a worthless scrap of paper. I couldn't trigger it. I sighed. Does this thing require a living target to lock onto? I hit the plaza and found old Arthur training. His eyes lit up when he saw me. He insisted on demonstrating his master defense arts. Once he finished his flashy little routine, the old man looked smug. I told him it was okay, kind of like slicing through butter. He got annoyed, thinking I was mocking him. He shoved a wooden sword into my hand. Show me something, he barked. I gripped the hilt and closed my eyes. Then it happened. The Astral Blade Codex moves were burned into my brain. My body just took over. I flowed through the first 12 chapters effortlessly. Thrust, flick, transition, it was all pure instinct. Every sweep and chop was seamless. With a quick snap of my wrist, I accelerated. The air howled as if some legendary knight possessed me. I prepared to sheathe the blade. Hand on the hilt, I snapped my eyes open. Starlight pierces the dawn to kill the night. One blade brings the frost. Dawn breaks the nightmare, my steel freezing the 9 realms. The wooden blade cleared the sheath, carving a brilliant white arc through the empty air. That arc shattered like a dying star. The sword clicked back into place with perfect precision. Arthur just stood there, jaw dropped, looking like he had been struck by a bolt of lightning. I looked at the still trees, shook my head, and handed the wooden sword back. I sighed. Not good enough. Didn't even manage to clip a single leaf off that branch. I am out. Need groceries. I walked away, heading to the market to grab a fresh fish. The moment I left, Arthur stumbled toward the massive oak tree. On that thick, ancient trunk, there was a hairline crack. A wooden sword had unleashed ki that pierced solid, century-old wood. Trembling, he dialed the Demon Hunter Guild. "Briggs, you need to get down here right now." "I found the monster." Captain Briggs arrived fast, but his face went pale, seeing the mark. This was silver rank power minimum. Their local guild was already dying, lacking anyone with this skill. Arthur grabbed Briggs' hands, eyes bloodshot. "We have to get this kid into the guild regardless." I got home with a 10-pound carp. I pinned it down and grabbed the backup rune. Just a safety measure, so I do not blow my hand off. "All right, Abyss Monster, die." Slap. The rune hit the fish. The carp just flopped and smacked me across the face. Nothing, no explosion, no magic. I just stood there, dripping with fish water and silence. This magic is a total scam. I cannot use runes without mana, and I have none. I am just a guy whose cancer cells turned him into a freak. Disappointed, I tossed the fish. Grim, my black cat, watched me from the sofa. His whole vibe had shifted for standing up. To him, I looked like a terrifying master. He thought I was testing him with those runes. He figured I was baiting his true identity. I ignored the neurotic cat and opened the game. The Middle-earth Ruins event starts soon, and Elara's survival rate is still stuck at 0%. I need to teach her the swordplay. The screen flickered. She was wearing that sultry silk nightgown. It fit perfectly. The white fabric clung to her curves, exposing her pale, delicate back. The silk tightened at her hips, showing a glimpse of thigh. In the dim candlelight, she knelt. Her face was flushed deep red. Stray hairs framed her face as she looked up at me. Her collarbones were sharp, her eyes watery and desperate. She tilted her head back, waiting. "Mentor," she whispered, "just give me the entire cultivation method at once. I can handle it." My heart hammered against my ribs. Those lines that look... It was almost too much. I swallowed hard. Who could say no to this? I tried to keep my voice steady. One step at a time. Today we start with the first 12 chapters of the Codex. The screen shifted. Elara's world blurred as she drifted into a dark, silent trance. Darkness, silence. My avatar stands ready, a silent, white-clad, blade-wielding specter. That silver-haired mage waited. One click. My sovereign glided forward, staff raised high. A soft tap. Focus. Elara's pixelated face burned a deep digital crimson. She trained for 12 hours. The AI's growth was terrifyingly impossibly steep. Her lethal blade dance was perfection. Soon she was drenched in virtual sweat. Thin silk clung to her skin. She panted with heavy simulated effort. Leaning on steel, she looked up. "Master, was that good enough?" "Am I slow? It took half a day just to see the doorway." "How long did it take you?" I panicked and typed a pathetic lie. "Back then, 10 minutes. My face burned in the monitor's glow. Her eyes sparkled with worship. Tomorrow, the guild would know my name. Word exploded. Shu-an arrived with dwarven ale, expecting a ruined shack. He froze, jaw dropping. The broken hut was gone, replaced by absolute magic. Polished stone fountains and 10 glowing fields of pure energy pulsed nearby. Terrified, he hid and sprinted back to recruit the entire guild. Minutes later, Elara opened her window and nearly collapsed from shock. The sky was choked with hoverboards. Even the High Pavilion Master arrived. Panicked, she retreated inside, pressing her weight against the heavy door. She feared a raid. Outside, Senior Sister Freya let out a booming laugh. "Open up! Did your master build this?" Balin's curiosity was finally piqued. Who could summon 10 spirit farms in an afternoon? Elara stayed silent. She peeked out trembling, but instead of a raid, she found gifts. They lined up. Freya brought seeds. Xuan brought the heavy liquor. Duanfang offered a legendary scabbard. Wealth began to pile high. Potions, scrolls, and a griffon egg were shoved into her small arms. A mountain of gold rose. Freya whispered that the Order never forgets. "The path is hard. We won't let another sister fall." Elara gripped her hands, weeping, swearing she'd survive the coming storm. Watching through the screen, I felt a strange warmth from this world. I slept like stone, but on the sill, my cat opened one eye. A vertical pupil leaked abyssal shadows. He glared at the dying carp. He sneered, pressing a paw down. One drop of demonic ichor seeped in. The beast feared I was a hidden god who would kill him. So he evolved the fish, a monster meat shield to protect his cover. Across town Trinity, the broken hunter dragged her bleeding body home. She gasped, "Divine runes! In that house! And something much worse!" "A high-rank entity lives there." Captain Briggs turned pale, hands shaking. They had no warriors. Sending men there was just a suicide mission. He dangled a promotion lying to her face to keep her watching. Greedy for power, she agreed, then ran off to hunt goblins. Back in-game drills ended, Elara didn't wait for the others. She found Master Balin napping in a willow and hid the ground. Master, help, Silas is dying. A dark poison is eating him. He's our grand mentor. You must save him before time expires. Balin froze. His own fabrications were finally coming home to roost. Silas. There was never a mentor by that name in the entire Brotherhood. Yet seeing the sheer panic in Elara's eyes, I couldn't just drop the hammer on her. My mind raced, stitching together a desperate scheme. Look, Elara, maybe my memory's just a little hazy. Walk with me. We'll head to the Great Hall of Relics and dig through the archives. My logic was flawless. If his name wasn't there, the lie would vanish. I could simply play the senile old man card, claiming I'd misremembered, and wash my hands of this whole mess once and for all. We reached the crumbling storage room. Elara, eyes bloodshot from stress, began frantically scouring every single brass nameplate in the dusty rows. I leaned back, trying to sound nonchalant. If he's not here, just let it go. It is not a big deal. I probably just had the wrong name. The words barely left my mouth before Elara threw herself against a weathered bronze plaque. I found it, boss. This is my master's name. My head started spinning. I shoved my way over to see what she had actually found. Perched on the very top shelf sat a marker. It read Psi something. The letters in the center had been completely eroded by time. You have got to be kidding me. I bolted outside to interrogate the veteran knight on duty. The old man just scowled. He swung his scabbard, catching me in the ribs. That is the Founder's mark, kid. A hell dragon scarred that metal during the Great War. That is why the spelling is messed up. He is the one who carved the dusk of divinity into the sacred monolith. Only steel endures. The world started to tilt. I felt like I was about to pass out right then. My fake story had somehow manifested into reality. Her teacher wasn't some random high-ranking monk. He was the literal architect of our entire civilization. This news was absolute dynamite. I flipped the script immediately, thumping my chest and making a vow loud enough for everyone to hear. We will liquidate every asset, even if we go totally broke. Our guild will bring the great ancestor back to life. Elara breathed a sigh of relief, but she didn't waste a second. She sprinted toward the great archives, hunting for a cure. When the ancient archmage heard that this girl was the chosen student of the great founder, his jaw nearly hit the floor. Without hesitating, he projected his consciousness, rifling through more than 300,000 ancient scrolls in a matter of seconds. He located a divine alchemy manual on the top floor, but there was a catch. She had to survive the gauntlet of the spirit. She had to fight a perfect mirror of herself. The old wizard figured she would be trapped in a brutal stalemate for hours. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed. The magical shield disintegrated. Elara emerged looking ghost-white, but determined, her blade still humming with raw energy. The archmage was stunned. This girl was a total fanatic, a woman possessed. Her entire soul was focused on one single goal. When her reflection told her she would fail to save her master, she just executed the thing on the spot. No hesitation, no mercy. Nothing would stand in her way. She grabbed the recipe. Meanwhile, at home, at daybreak, I was yanked out of sleep by 2 heavy thuds echoing from the hallway right outside my bedroom door. I figured it was just Amazon, so I swung the door open. My heart stopped. The metallic stench of fresh blood hit me like a physical blow. A red smear painted the floor leading to Trinity. The mercenary who had gone out to hunt monsters the night before was absolutely drenched in gore. Her wounds were deep and jagged. She had collapsed right at my feet, barely clinging to life. What the hell happened to you? I panicked, scooping her up and rushing her over to the couch. If she kicked the bucket in the hallway, there was no way the cops would believe a single word I said. I punched 911 into my phone. The operator barked orders at me to start chest compressions immediately. I locked my fingers over her sternum and leaned in. It was a sickening sound. A spray of dark blood erupted from her mouth, coating the ceiling. I went cold. Since when did I have this kind of freakish power? I had just pulverized 3 of her ribs. It was a Hail Mary play. I grabbed the silver needles I had gotten from the interface and went to work. I was a blur, driving needles into pressure points to seal the leaks and knit bone. My hands moved too fast. Grim the cat demon was watching from the shadows, absolutely terrified. He assumed this dying woman was one of my elite soldiers. To him, a god-tier master performing surgery personally meant things were getting real. Fearing for his life, he scrambled. The cat bolted to the couch, frantically licking Trinity's face as if his life depended on showing her some affection. The needles did their job. Trinity's eyes snapped open only to find a massive, terrifying black cat staring her down. That ancient, hellish energy from the beast slammed into her, making her eyes roll back. She nearly dropped dead from fright. Luckily, paramedics arrived and carried her out. I sighed, thinking the chaos was over, but minutes later, several cops showed up. A room full of blood and a mangled girl. I was cuffed and hauled to the station immediately. Officer, please listen, I barely know her. I was just using needles to save her. I pleaded my case, but the cop just stared at me like a total creep. Suddenly the door swung open. That bearded hunter, Captain Briggs, walked right in. He flashed FBI credentials, cleared the room, and took over. The old wolf scanned me like a laser. He'd seen the protective seals on my house and knew a beast was inside. He realized I wasn't just some random guy. Mr. Silas, I'm certain you're innocent, Briggs said with a fake toothy smile. Really? Then give me my phone back. I stared at him, desperate. Missing my Elara for even an hour felt wrong. Briggs slid the phone over. I started tapping frantically, while to Briggs I was just poking at a dead black screen. In this magic-scarred world, there was only one answer for what he saw. This was a soul-bound relic. Briggs leaned forward, his voice turning cold and sharp. Hey, Silas, this phone looks like a total dinosaur. Mind if I take a look at it? I blinked quickly, exited the game, and handed the device over. It's just a beat-up iPhone, whatever. Briggs grabbed it and swiped around. His face went pale. To him, the screen was hidden behind a thick, swirling grey fog. He saw nothing, yet I'd been playing on this black brick with total focus. That proved it. This phone was my sacred relic. Briggs was internally reeling, but he played it cool, returned the phone, and started digging for info. Silas, that seal on your door is interesting. Want to sell it to me? He grinned like a predator. I got suspicious. Selling a piece of scrap? Briggs wasn't just a fed. I decided to test him. Name your price. $1,000, $10,000, $15,000. Briggs got desperate and shouted out a massive number. Deal. I flashed my Venmo code and slapped a crumpled Stormflame seal into his hand. His hand shook, terrified it would detonate. He gave me a fake address and ran. Back at the hotel, I connected the dots. The world had truly gone mad. Those mutants were actually abyssal demons. Trinity and Briggs were both elite hunters. And I wasn't some medical freak. The game had turned me into an awakened hero. As I was thinking, the maid's terrified scream pierced through my door. I looked out to see a massive black-furred rat stalking the hallway. It smelled her blood. Its crimson eyes locked onto me, and it lunged like a dark, fuzzy bullet. I didn't even have time to move, just raised my arm. But nothing happened. The giant rodent screeched to a halt 2 meters away, trembling violently. It actually pissed itself right there. It was deathly afraid of me. Or maybe it was just terrified of the rune-covered box sitting next to me. Well, look at that. Today I'm making you a very dead Mickey Mouse, I whispered. I pulled a rune and slapped it onto its head. Boom. A massive lightning strike obliterated the hallway, the shockwave blowing outdoors for 50 meters. The shockwave shredded the air. Briggs, who had just pulled up, stood frozen. He was so spooked he practically hit the deck. As the haze thinned, that massive rat had been reduced to scorched atoms. I stood there, the hand gripping my rune, slightly singed and smelling of ozone. Surprisingly, I was untouched. Guess I'm not just some terminal patient after all. I am a god of thunder. Briggs was instantly sold. He pulled me into an alley to explain our broken reality. The abyss had clawed its way back, forcing the creation of the Demon Hunter Guild. He figured my phone was a legendary holy relic capable of manifesting magic, but creation always demands a brutal sacrifice. Silas, what is the cost of these runes? What are you giving up? Briggs stared me down. My chest tightened. If I told him it was free, I would become a human battery for some government lab. I could see the scalpels in my mind, so I hiked up my pant leg to show him the bone tumors. It cost me my life. Every rune feeds the cancer. The doctors give me 30 days tops. Briggs looked like he had been punched. Pure, unadulterated guilt washed over his face. A high-ranking captain, and he had just swindled a dying man out of a miracle for $15,000. With bloodshot eyes, he begged me to join the guild, promising ancient breathing techniques and holy sanctuary. He babbled about divine healers and the noble duty of saving the human race. I watched the oblivious crowds in the sunshine and just shook my head. Officer, listen. My parents burned to death. By the time the insurance settled, I had $2,000 left. I have terminal bone cancer and zero cash for treatment. My girl left me for a guy who actually has a future. This world turned its back on me when I was drowning. Now you want me to be its hero? That is disgusting." Briggs had no answer. I grabbed my suitcase and walked away. I disappeared into the masses. I told him I would hunt monsters for the bounties, but I was done with groups. I got back to my flea-ridden apartment and fired up the game immediately. Real life is a meat grinder. My digital companion is the only thing that feels real anymore. Elara was beaming as she recounted her day. She found a lead through the pavilion master. They found some ancient relic of mine. Suddenly, I was not just a teacher, I was their holy ancestor. Balin was ready to sell his soul and every scrap of metal he owned just to save me. Elara found a recipe for a legendary purification potion in the Forbidden Library, but the ingredients are nearly extinct. They need dragon blood vine and deep sea berries. Do not worry, mentor, she whispered. The Middle-earth ruins are opening soon. There is a druid sanctuary hidden inside the heart of the waste. I will find the cure. I refuse to let you go. She knelt on the digital rug, shivering. Her eyes were rimmed with red, but her resolve was harder than any steel I had ever seen. My heart ached. In the physical world, I was a ghost. I was nothing. But in here, this girl was willing to die for me. The screen shifted to a jagged cliffside. The sun was bleeding out across the horizon. Elara stood with her pack flanked by Balin and Freya. "This journey is a death sentence," Balin warned. "I am sending your senior sister to keep you alive." Balin was grim. Freya, on the other hand, was busy taking a swig from her flask. She threw a heavy arm around Elara. "I will protect the kid," she slurred with a grin. "But only if she buys the rounds." Balin looked sick as he pulled 2 bags of gold from his cloak. He gripped the coins like a lifeline. Freya did not hesitate. She pried his fingers back one by one. She swiped 20 gold pieces and winked. "We are out of here, old man." They headed into the dark without a backward glance. Balin sighed and summoned his flying blade. He streaked into the sky, leaving a trail of white light behind him. His energy carved a message into the clouds above the cliff. "May the holy light guide you." I watched them go, my fists white-knuckled. To save me, she's walking into hell. Elara is risking everything in those ruins. I am not going to let a little cancer be the end of me. I tapped the interface, dumping another $5,000 into my digital account. Elara's eyes were bloodshot as she clutched her skirt, her voice cracking with every word. "I have no regrets, master. I would spend every night grinding these potions until my vision blurred, just to help." "Why are you talking like you are on your deathbed? Snap out of it and find some damn spine." Those words hit me hard, cutting through the icy numbness my bone cancer left in my chest. It lit a fire in me. A terminal diagnosis is not just some dark magic, it is a monster far worse than any curse. Even if she was just lines of code in a game, her plea was real. "Silas, you have to live. Do not quit." I squeezed the telepathic scroll, screaming into the empty air. "I am not dying today. I am going to survive. If the universe wants me dead, then I will just have to prove it wrong. I am staying alive. I will risk everything, killing beasts, chasing gold, just to afford that top-tier experimental medicine. 1.5 million per injection. Fine. I will buy 10. I will buy 100. Money buys time and time buys a cure. I threw open the door, walking out like I owned the world. Some poor girl was lurking there and jumped out of her skin, tripping over her own feet and landing hard on the floor. It was Trinity from the Demon Hunter Guild. She was supposed to be my observer. She spent the whole time huddled on the edge of the 3-meter sofa, while my cat Grim cowered on the opposite side. It was a total standoff of pure terror. "I did not play games. You getting paid to watch me?" She gulped and said, $150 a day. I held out my hand, split it 50-50, without missing a beat. She dropped to one knee and bowed like I was royalty. "Please let me observe the hell out of you. Consider me your loyal sister from now on. Do we have a deal?" I shoved her toward the guest room. She would be a perfect source for inside info. That same night, I hauled her to the guild hideout. Treatment was not going to pay for itself. I needed a bounty. The second I cracked the hidden door on the cafe 4th floor, the smell of iron and rot slammed into me. 2 bodies were sprawled across the floor, their skulls pried open and emptied. It was a gruesome, hollowed-out mess. The hunters inside were fuming, drawing steel, and preparing for a bloodbath. Captain Briggs took a heavy drag of his cigar, his face grim. "Change of plans," he barked. "We are hauling ass." The room went silent. The enemy is at the gates, and we are just running. Before he could finish, black webs blanketed the ceiling. A desk-sized weaver demon dropped down, dangling its pale human face and splitting a manic grin from ear to ear. A silver rank nightmare. A wanted killer. Every hunter in the room turned white. Briggs fired off an enchanted shell, yelling for us to go while he held the line. Then, the demon smashed through the bricks, burying him in a chorus of screams. Trinity grabbed my arm and sprinted. Once we hit the alley, I played it cool. That spider. Is there a price on its head? She nodded like her life depended on it. Huge, massive money. The bounty is $20,000. I stopped dead and reached for the storm. Flame runes in my pocket. My math was simple, if these could erase wolves and rats. This spider was already a dead man walking. I shook Trinity off, turned my heels and headed back into the meat grinder. Time to get paid. Upstairs, Briggs was a bloody wreck, missing an entire arm. The spider stood over him, laughing as he fumbled for the rune I had given him earlier. But the magic had faded, leaving him with nothing but a useless scrap. As the spider prepared to melt him with acid, I crept up behind it. The thing was sharp, though whipping its head around instantly. It glared at me, thinking it was so smart, assuming I was just holding a smoke bomb to facilitate an escape. To save her, I'll do anything. You doubt me, just watch what I'm about to upload right now. The beast shrieked in a frenzy, yet its talons froze midair, terrified to even graze me. No more talking. I grabbed a metal rack and slammed that explosive thunder seal directly into its hideous face. I spun around, hit the concrete, and shielded my skull. One fluid motion. You're on your own now, Briggs. Good luck. Boom! A blinding white flash incinerated the floor. Primal lightning and hellfire detonated in a synchronized roar. Half the level buckled. That supposedly invincible shell the Weaver boasted about was reduced to fist-sized charred rubble. Its blackened carcass hissed with smoke as it scrambled for the exit. It almost reached the door when Trinity appeared, backhanding another glowing sigil onto the frame. Damn it, she's fast. Gone. A final surge of electricity turned that silver-tier nightmare into a cloud of drifting gray soot. I crawled out of the wreckage, shaking pulverized brick and dust off my jacket. My pocket buzzed. A game notification surfaced, target neutralized. Abyssal Stalker eliminated. Loot secured, essence shards, arachnid silk and mithril mesh armor. Delivery complete. My jaw dropped. Slaughtering monsters in the real world actually yields digital rewards. A suit of tactical armor materialized on my bed out of nowhere. This game had stopped pretending. Reality and code were merging. Briggs dragged himself from the debris, a sobbing, snot-covered wreck of a man. He begged me to join the hunters. I walked away with my $20,000 bounty instead. I tracked down Trinity for answers. She'd already taken my bribe and was feeling talkative. With her guard down, she explained every detail of the guild's secret energy manipulation breathing techniques. The introduction unlocks the nervous system. The core draws power inward. My brain felt like it was vibrating. Everything clicked. That's why my body reacted so violently when I experimented with those pressure points earlier. My legs felt like lightning. That crystal jewelry was actually acting as a conduit for pure kinetic force. The energy was fueling my muscles. This meant I could finally master the tidal mysteries myself. I just need to bridge the circuits. If I max out the Holy Spirit skill, I'll be unstoppable. Open my meridians and I'll be casting real magic. Forget being some biological freak. I'm becoming a god. Clear the stage. It's time for Grand Mentor Silas to show them how it's done. I sprinted home, bolted the door, and tapped the glowing interface on my phone. Upgrading to master level costs $1,000 in-game. Confirm, no hesitation. I'm not being cheap when my life is on the line. I stared at the screen. Elara and Freya were hunkered down in a small village tavern, finally settling in for the night. Freya, ever the exhibitionist, stripped off her gear and tossed it aside. Elara just watched, horrified. The girl retreated under the blankets, too embarrassed to even look her way. I ignored the drama and burned cash on a Tier 1 mana array. 10 flawless crystals fell from nowhere. Thick, suffocating energy flooded the room. Elara whimpered under the sheets as the air began to hum. Freya stood there, completely exposed, her skin crawling as she realized the sheer scale of the power present. She knew I was watching. I didn't care about her shame. I had a credit limit to burn. I needed to spend another 1,000. I hunted through the limited-time shop for something massive. Astral Skyship, $1,500. Faster than a high-tier mage, and fully automated, the perfect getaway vehicle for my little apprentice. Purchase confirmed. Above the city skyline, the fabric of space ripped wide open. A gargantuan steampunk vessel descended. Below, the city guards fell to their knees, screaming that the gods had arrived. They thought it was a miracle. A prompt appeared: pay $15 to invoke the Titan's grip. Move the apprentices without breaking their meditation. Transaction approved. Static filled the air. A translucent divine hand reached down from the clouds, its fingers wrapping around the entire inn like a toy. The building was uprooted. The spectral fist shook the structure, tossing out every terrified bystander except my students. He wound up and launched that tavern like a Hail Mary, smashing it onto the deck. Bullseye. Perfect. The vessel immediately redlined, screaming toward our coordinates at full throttle. Destination Emerald Star Valley. I finally exhaled, though my skull felt like it might split open. The alert popped: 6 hours for the master level upgrade. I had pushed the commands too fast. System overload. I blacked out the second I touched the pillow. When I wake up, Silas will finally be uncaged. The vessel sliced through the clouds for one long night. At sunrise, Freya groaned, stretched her limbs, and finally kicked the front door open. She turned to stone. No city street outside, just an infinite, terrifying drop into the clouds. The porch sat inches from the roaring engine core. The building was completely uprooted. Elara traced the scars on the wood, overwhelmed. She assumed the boss pulled a miracle. All to keep their focus steady. What a guy. They leaned over the railing, looking down. Then everything went sideways. A deafening, bone-shaking roar. The sky fractured and the ground buckled. The ship didn't even think about slowing down. It slammed into the valley's cloaking field, burying the bow deep into the power hub. The city's main shield snapped like glass. The entire Emerald Star district went into meltdown. Wizards were running scared everywhere. 2 figures suddenly plummeted onto the tavern roof. It was Elena, the local heiress. Standing beside her was a massive, terrifying shadow. A bald, lipstick-wearing brute of a knight. Elena had just opened the gates last night. She'd planned to trap the rival guild, but instead found a skyship parked in her foyer. Her gaze pinned them down, her lips curling into a nasty, mocking sneer. Look what the cat dragged in. Those broke losers from that pathetic guild actually got a ship. You trashed my city's defense system, and you still have the nerve to stand tall. Freya had zero chill. She ripped out her heavy blade and aimed it at the girl. Who are you calling a mouse? Keep talking, and I'll give you a second mouth. I'll split you in 2. The bald knight just let out a cold, heavy grunt. A crushing pressure hit them like a skyscraper dropped on their heads. Freya couldn't move. Total lockdown. This woman was a top-tier powerhouse, her face twisted into a cruel mask. Boss, she rasped, her voice pure venom. Why keep wasting air on these 2 stains? The beast stepped forward, her killing intent suffocating Elara. She raised the black great axe, grinning. Let's take their legs and hold them for ransom. She swung the heavy blade to kill. Elena held up a hand. I'm a woman of my word. I'll give you 1 shot. She smirked, tossing a glowing gold lotus. The artifact exploded into a blinding flash. It dragged them into a psychological hellscape. Conquer the nightmare, and you get your medicine. Inside, the mental torture was brutal, betrayals and the sight of her parents dying on repeat. Elara pushed through it, but then the vision changed to show me. I was covered in red, being torn apart and eaten alive by a pack of monsters. That was the final straw. Elara's mind snapped. Her eyes bled a deep, dark red. She gripped her sword, glaring at the void. Her rage literally tore a hole in the sky. She was ready to cut the heavens in half, but back in reality. I was jolted awake by my phone's screeching alarm. The screen was flashing blood-red text. Warning, your digital partner has broken the laws and is about to be deleted by lightning. Are you kidding me? I lunged out of bed, heart hammering against my ribs. I hammered the override button. A heavy bell tolled inside my skull. Elara snapped back to her senses. Once she was safe, I panned over to check Freya. She was still losing it, rolling in the dirt and screaming for someone to kill the flames. I projected my voice directly to Elara, slapped some sense into her. Now, the moment she heard me, Elara's composure shattered into tears. She knew I'd cheated death. She pivoted toward her sister, manifesting a bucket of ice and a heavy leather strap. Forgive me, sister, she whispered, offering a sharp, ritualistic salute to her own heart. She plunged the leather into the freezing slush and delivered a brutal, stinging backhand strike. The bite of cold and agony collided, jolting Freya awake with a raw, desperate scream. I had to admire the kid's grit. She's cold-blooded when it counts. My kind of student. But the barrier held firm. I pulled up the marketplace, scanning for the pay-to-win nuclear option. Basic breaches were cheap, but my eyes locked onto the third most expensive tier, $6,666 to force this avatar into the god tier legendary realm. The Astral Blade Codex, this Emerald Star Valley trash really thought they could bully mine. I'll give them a nightmare to remember. I doubled down on option 3 and donned the rig. Reality dissolved into white silk as I drifted down onto the very crown of the barrier. Elara looked up, her face lighting up with a sudden worshipful hope at my arrival. I maintained a mask of cold infinite power. "Watch closely, child," I commanded the girl. "Today your master shows you how a real blade tastes air." I drew my steel. The very sky over Ethelgard bled into new colors, the horizon trembling under my gaze. The sun died out, eclipsed by a sudden swirling void of deep space galaxies and ancient stars. My legendary presence crushed the valley like a mountain. Elena's face turned the color of ash. She collapsed into the dirt, her entire frame vibrating with a terror that bypassed her soul. "Lord have mercy," she wailed. "Please, we can settle this. We can pay." I let out a low, freezing chuckle. "You should have stayed your hand. It is finished." Behold the end. I stepped out onto the celestial path, walking on a floor of stars. I looked down like a god and swung. A literal galaxy fell from the ninth heaven. One strike tore through the fabric of the night, shattering the cosmos into a million blades. A tidal wave of starlight hammered into the valley, leaving even me shaken by the carnage. I'd only tapped 80% of that power, yet the tallest peak was sliced clean away. A bottomless trench now split the earth, howling with the echoes of my lingering violent mana. Through the settling dust, a white-haired woman crawled out desperately, trying to catch the aftershocks. Coughing up thick dark blood, the Valley Master fell to her knees amidst the smoking rubble. She pressed her face into the filth, terrified. "My lord, please, spare what is left. I will pay any price." I saw my timer ticking down. Only 10 seconds left. I kept the mystery alive. "Your valley has been touched by my blade's destiny today. I might return later to finish the job. Pray that I am in a better mood." I cut the connection and pulled the headset off, exhaling as the real world returned. Back on my phone, Elena was groveling. She was practically forcing legendary herbs on me. She even took my guild's junk as collateral. The master was obsessed with my sword's scar. She ordered the whole sect to pray to that abyss every day to learn its secrets. Honestly, I wrecked her entire home, and she started treating me like a holy deity. That was enough gaming. In reality, my needle technique had finally reached the absolute peak. A few precise strikes to my pressure points, and I'd finally unlock my own mana core. I needed a test subject first, though. My eyes landed on the black cat watching me. Grim knew. The little devil saw the silver needles, and his fur went completely flat. He tried to bolt, but I snatched him by the scruff before he hit the door. "Hold still, buddy. One little poke, and you'll be the first magic cat on the block." Grim's gaze smoldered with shame, a silent storm brewing. I remained blissfully unaware. He was a primordial abyssal terror. I applied my peak-tier needle technique flawlessly. My hands were a blur. Grim froze, his survival instinct replaced by shock. A heartbeat later, his eyes widened with an expression of sheer, heavenly pleasure. This energy was expanding his pathways, forcing his mortal vessel to evolve. I finished as Trinity emerged. She stood there dazed by my lightning-fast movements. She cautiously offered a specialized timepiece. "Silas, please take this," she whispered. "It is a custom Hunter Guild scanner. Use it to detect nearby monsters." I was intrigued. I pointed it at the cat and initiated a scan. A green light flashed. The screen read, "Standard domestic house cat detected." What a letdown. Beside me, the Abyssal Lord mocked me with a yawn. A sovereign can hide its soul perfectly. No cheap gadget could find him. I tried again, aiming at the large carp I had bought that morning. Beep red lights strobed. A high-level warning flared across the display. "Mutated beast detected," I gasped, turning toward Trinity in total shock. "Trinity, this fish is a monster. If I stew, it will I gain mana." The carp thrashed in terror, its tail slapping the floor like a drum. It looked ready to cry. Trinity turned pale, imagining a horrible chain reaction. She feared eating the carp would invite the black cat's terrible wrath. She lunged to stop me. "Silas, no monster meat carries deadly blood curses." To save itself, the carp gagged and spat out a glowing magic orb. It was a high-grade pearl. My eyes sparkled with newfound greed. "I negotiated 1 pearl every 7 days, or you are going in the pot." The fish nodded frantically. "We had ourselves a very lucrative deal. You are our new gold mine greenie, $10,000 a week, pure profit." I put the beast back and sent Trinity away on a pizza errand. Once the room was quiet, I prepared for the true test of power. I stripped off my shirt and grabbed the needles, breathing deeply. It was time for the great mentor to finally make his grand return. Using the peak-tier piercing method, I began the ritual without any fear. I struck my own acupoints. Intense agony and pleasure fought for my soul. My senses exploded. Every sound and smell became incredibly vivid and clear. My vision sharpened like a hawk's. "Success," I whispered, clenching my fist. Feeling invincible, I threw a heavy punch at the concrete support wall. Crack, damn it, my hand instantly swelled into a throbbing purple mess. I cursed, hopping around. I had opened the gates, but had no fuel. Without mana, I was just a man breaking his hand on stone. I opened the game app. The Tidal Mysteries technique was finally unlocked. This was the path to true power. I hit learn without hesitation. Suddenly, the roar of the ocean filled my mind. Everything turned blue. A spectral mage stood upon the crashing waves, commanding the tides themselves. With every motion, the sea rose and fell in perfect, terrifying rhythm. Mana swirled into vortexes before the vision faded into a single page. It was ancient Elvish. Even a translation app would be useless here. It would produce only gibberish. My science degree could not help me decode this. Staring at this scroll without the skill to use it was absolute torture. I saw Elara on the monitor, squirming on her mattress with scarlet cheeks. My earlier poke had clearly landed. A desperate plan began to take shape. If I can't read it, the expert will. I cleared my throat loudly. I opened the voice channel, making my tone deep and heavy. "Elara, you've studied the tides for a while. These secrets are jagged and complex. Today I'll test your progress." Her eyes instantly sparkled like crescent moons. She looked ecstatic. She sat cross-legged, moving with a strange forced clumsiness. She played the fool, feigning ignorance. "I'm slow, master. I still need you. Please evaluate me." "Evaluate." She was practically carving the manual into my brain. She was spoon-feeding me every detail. I glued my eyes to the screen. My fingers were a blur, recording everything. So that's the finger positioning. Focus on elements, not mundane thoughts. Your foundation still feels very shaky. "Show me your mana flow." I kept a poker face, fishing for secrets. She obeyed, tracing the energy route from her crown to her spinal nexus. It was a perfect circuit. She finished, then bowed, blushing with deep shame. "My grasp is a grain of sand compared to yours, master. I'm unworthy. Please enlighten me." My brain felt fried. She called this a failure. If she's failing, then I'm just a ghost haunting this machine. Nothing. She waited for wisdom, but my mind was a total empty void. Backed into a corner, I went for broke. I took a jagged breath. I spat nonsense into the mic. Through abyssal fire, I forged my soul. "Winter is a whisper. I am the storm. The light never dies. Magic is forever," just trashy lines I stole from old fantasy novels. Then silence. My heart hammered. Did I just kill the entire act? But the game's intelligence was terrifying, turning my trash into a divine decree. A thunderous voice rocked her room. It sounded like the world was speaking. "Shadows dance where light calls. The rising tide is the dawn. The falling tide is the void. Seek the root, not the surface. Rebuild the soul to see truth." Elara looked like she'd seen God. A blinding blue light shattered the air around her. She was vibrating. Ocean energy flooded the room like a broken levee. She was a novice. But her power spiked, tearing through her limits in 2 seconds. She hit the mid-tier ranks instantly. She knelt, saluting the empty air. "Master has revealed the path. This wisdom is a second birth. I won't fail you," she was sobbing. I felt like a monster. I wiped my sweaty brow. A lie became a miracle. What a student. The skyship suddenly crested the mountain. The scene shifted to the peaks. Balin stood by a black cave, his eyes burning with sick greed. He was hunting the ship, oblivious that his own student was aboard. He summoned the sect's guardian, a legendary wolf that blocked the sun. Big husky go tear that ship out of the sky. "Do it and I'll find you a mate," Balin's roar shook earth. The beast let out a blood-curdling howl. It lunged like a shadow. On deck, Freya's face went white. The end was coming for us. "Stop, master, don't shoot. It's us, me and Elara." Balin's smirk died instantly, horror washing over him as he scrambled backward in a blind panic. "You monster, quit." But the strike was already in motion. It was too late. The massive beast was lost to its own savage hunger, baring its fangs to tear the ship apart. Its heavy frame slammed into the hull's shimmering energy field. Right at that heart-stopping second, I dumped hundreds of dollars to force my character's instant arrival right before the vessel. The fabric of reality tore. My white hair whipped as I stepped through the rift mid-air. Ignoring that pathetic mutt, I snapped my leg toward its massive skull with a heavy, devastating roundhouse kick. The very air around us seemed to shatter from the impact. A violent shockwave rippled through the clouds, knocking the entire skyship back 300 meters. That overconfident beast was sent flying 10 times faster than its charge like a dark comet. It plowed into the foothills below the massive impact, causing half the ridge to simply vanish. Pathetic whimpers drifted up from the debris. I crossed my arms, staring down at the shaking, speechless Balin. I let out a cold, sharp breath. That is your first and only warning. Next time, I'm turning that wolf into a barbecue. After that, I logged out with total confidence. The camera shifted to the sanctuary. We had the herbs, but we needed a high-grade crucible, capable of surviving extreme heat. The old man looked defeated. The guildmaster has won, but he treats us like trash. He would never lend his gear to a bunch of swordsmen. Elara bit her lip, her eyes filled with desperate hope. There has to be another way. The elder pulled out a charred ancient scroll, his face darkening. There is one way. The texts say a mage can act as the furnace, burning their own mana to purify the herbs. A water mage must enter the fire. Balin, standing nearby, did not want to hear it. He grabbed the scroll and threw it to the floor. This is insane. This is dark magic. Burn it. I would rather raid the Alchemists Guild myself than let this happen. While they fought, Elara quietly picked up the scroll, her fingers trembling, but her grip firm. Fear was gone, replaced by the grim determination of someone with no backup plan. Master, to save my teacher, I will do it. My heart hammered against my ribs as I watched. Was she crazy? She was choosing a suicide mission, taking a jagged breath. She stepped into the roaring white heat of the massive alchemical furnace. She pulled the heavy lid shut. Before disappearing, she begged for a soundproof barrier, terrified that her screams of pain would break my focus. On my monitor, the furnace glowed with a lethal light as the flames consumed everything. I stared at the screen, my knuckles white from clenching my fists. I needed power. More power. Right then, my battle pass pinged. A rare loot crate began to glow purple. I clicked the elemental box instantly. A blinding arc of golden electricity flooded the display. I got it, the Heart of Thunder, a legendary single-element lightning talent. Pure, raw lightning power. Finally, the edge I had been looking for arrived. Thunder exploded in my mind. I looked inward, seeing my once empty core now sparking. A sapling of pure electricity had taken root, drawing energy from every direction. It pulsed with a destructive, chaotic aura. Everything was finally in place. I just needed the final spark. I sat down and focused on the ritual Elara taught. I invoked the tidal mysteries. Energy flowed into me like a river of liquid fire, pulling in my core and forming a raging vortex. Then came the sudden pop. A thin trail of white mist rose as I opened my eyes, feeling absolute power surging. I could not help but laugh. It worked. I had finally crossed the threshold into magic. Even as a novice, I balled my fists tight. Raw energy surged toward my knuckles while I glared at the concrete pillar. I lunged forward, twisting my core to deliver a devastating heavy blow. Crack! Damn it! I shrieked like a dying animal. The sound echoed through the complex. Minutes later, I was still shaking. My hand looked like a bruised plum under the ice. Total amateur move. The circuits were open, but my skeleton lacked the necessary structural reinforcement. That strike was suicide. Now cash is my only real priority. Without funds for medicine, I am dead. I opened the Hunter app. My eyes darted through contracts until one specific job caught my attention. Scout the Century City Phase 3 site. Reward $50,000. A $50,000 bonus for a full clear, that is it. 100 grand for a local gig, count me in. I clicked accept just as Trinity burst inside, gasping for her breath. She stood there, hands on her hips, screaming my name. You took that job? 3 professional hunters already died at that site. I grabbed my jacket. She warned I would not live to spend it. She was frantic, but I just stared back. Without that cash, I am already a ghost. Stay behind if you are too scared. That did it. Her face flushed as she grabbed her steel pike. Who is scared? Let us go. We took a cab into the abyss. The gates were chained, but 4 college girls were loitering outside. They were looking for thrills. The blonde girl perked up immediately. She walked over and latched onto me like a starstruck fan. Hey, handsome. What is your handle? I did not have time. I gave her my code to move her, then we hopped the fence. We barely cleared the wall before a horrific scream pierced the night. Trinity went pale. Her wrist scanner began blaring a crimson warning. God, it is an abyss dweller. Something happened at the entrance. I did not wait for her. I flooded my legs with power. I hooked her shoulder and blurred through the dark like a ghost. The wind roared as I carried her toward the site perimeter. We reached the gate. The smell of fresh blood was suffocating. A 7-foot nightmare loomed beneath the flickering orange streetlights. It was hunched over, making sickening wet, crunching sounds as it ate. The beast paused and tossed a round object aside. Trinity froze. It was a mangled head, the same blonde girl from the gate. The creature let out a jagged, mocking cackle that chilled my blood. It hurled her torn torso at us like a heavy cannonball. Tailing the body was a soot-covered claw aimed at my throat. Silas moved. Trinity dove away, her voice cracking with pure terror. "Dodge," she screamed. But I did not budge an inch. My gaze turned to ice. A sharp metallic ring filled the air. Ignoring the debris, I drew my steel in one fluid motion. A flash of white light sliced the dark. Silence followed. My blade sliced clean through that floating shell of a man, splitting him and the shadowed predator behind him into two. That single brutal arc of steel ended the beast. Thick, stinking ichor sprayed across my skin like warm, oily rain. I didn't even flinch. With a quick flick of my wrist, I wiped the dark filth from my glowing rune blade. To be honest, I liked it when she called me attractive. The monster's throat rattled as death finally gripped its soul. It tried to wheeze out a plea, stuttering for mercy. No mistakes here. One backhanded strike, and the silver light finished the job. Its skull spiraled into the night air. The massive rotting carcass hit the floor with a heavy thud. Then the head sprouted limbs. Twitching tentacles burst from the neck, scuttling across the pavement like some hellish black spider. It turned back to grin at me with jagged teeth. "You can't end me!" it shrieked while retreating. "When my master returns, every one of you hunters is dead meat." I wasn't finished yet. I just smirked. I focused my strength, and the ground beneath me surged with raw, violent energy. The sidewalk crumbled under my boot. I became a blur of motion, weaving through the rusted skeletons of the old building. I moved so fast I was nothing but a streak of pale light against the darkness. The creature's eyes bulged in pure, unadulterated terror as I closed the gap. I flipped through the air, landing perfectly. My blade's tip rested exactly between its wide, panicked eyes. "Wait, sorry, please, let's just talk about this like adults." It wailed for pity. I told it to shut its mouth. "Give me the goods." I brought the sword down, and the force turned its skull into a cloud of dust. I pinned the remains to the bricks. A notification pinged: "Target eliminated. 1 ghoul down." I grabbed 1 demon crystal shard. I sheathed my steel and turned to look for my partner Trinity. She was huddled in the corner by a pile of rusted metal, her head tucked low. She sat shivering, holding her knees. "Hey, did I scare you?" I reached out to comfort her, but before I could speak, the air in the room shifted dangerously. Her eyes were dead and empty. She snapped her head up and lunged for the nearby spear. Like a coiled snake, the weapon hissed toward my throat. She was moving with impossible lethal speed. But with my senses dialed to 11, it looked like she was moving through molasses. I casually tilted my head. I caught the spear mid-thrust and used her own momentum to flip her over my shoulder with a grunt. She hit the scrap pile with a sickening metal clang, letting out a sharp, pained cry. I stepped in close, focusing on her neck. There it was, a bloated crimson spider burrowed into her skin. The parasite was pulling the strings. Realizing it was caught, the bug tried to scurry away. I didn't give it a chance. My blade cut the thing in half. More loot for the pile. "Found you." A gravelly voice echoed from the rafters directly above me. "Someone was watching. You think you can escape me that easily?" I stowed the blade and clenched my teeth, prepping for a vertical climb. I flooded my limbs with energy, sticking to the surface like some kind of urban predator. I raced up the sheer face of the concrete wall, moving faster than any human should ever be able to. I cleared the roof's edge, but a freezing gust of wind warned me of an incoming attack. A figure in black robes and a bone mask charged at me. "You're out of your league, kid," he hissed. He aimed a wicked blackened blade right for my spine, striking like a cobra in the dark. I didn't need to look. I snatched my weapon and spun around in one fluid, graceful motion. I unleashed a devastating swing. No tricks, no flair, just pure concentrated power from the old ways. It was fast. It was final. The sound of metal meeting metal was deafening. Our weapons clashed with a violent spark. A loud crack echoed as the impact sent him stumbling back. He stared at the shattered remains of his knife, his jaw dropping behind that hideous bone mask. "That was cursed steel. How did you— What kind of monster are you?" He shrieked, scrambling back as if I were a ghost. My expression stayed cold. I stepped forward. Hand over the loot. Honestly, I didn't even know what it was. My lord? He hit the deck with a thud, scrambling backward in pure terror. Backing toward the roof's edge, he frantically fished a pile of scrap from his clothes. He dumped it and kowtowed. Please, Great One, spare me. My treasures, just let me go. I have a family, kids who need their father. I stopped, eyes narrowing into thin slits as I stared him down. You got cash? The cultist froze. I do. I pulled my phone out, opened my Zelle QR code, and shoved it at him. Transfer it. Your life depends on the amount. Why chase bounties when I can rob you? Direct robbery was faster than any mission. The cultist stared, his brain completely fried. In a world of magical chaos, someone wanted dollars. He didn't dare hesitate. Shaking, he scanned the code and emptied his balance. Notification payment received. 580,000. Lord, that is all I have, he gasped. I swear, he forced a gruesome, pathetic smile, flashing a row of rotted teeth. Can I go? I checked the balance, my eyes glinting with satisfaction. I nodded. Sure, $10,000 buys you 0.1 seconds of life. 580,000. Let's round up. You get 6 seconds. My treat. Don't mention it. He stared at me, face twisting with sudden violent rage. His eyes bulged as he prepared to lunge. I just started counting. 6. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Time is up. With a flick, my blade carved a silver arc. A wet thud followed. His head vaulted upward. I struck again, my sword energy shredding it into red mist. System alert, cultist slain. Obtained shimmering crystal fragments. Cursed black steel, a broken dirk, and a mind control parasite. After the cleanup, I grabbed the gear and dropped from the rooftop. Police strobes flashed nearby. The Monster Hunter Guild vehicles had already blocked the gate. Trinity was there, clutching her ribs and pacing with frantic anxiety. Find Silas, he is still inside, she barked. Then she turned toward the shadows. I walked into the light blade, dripping. Silas, she cried in relief. Are you okay? She yelled. I just pushed past her without a word. It wasn't the captain leading. It was a frail, white-haired old man. Our eyes met. He started shaking as if struck by lightning. Arthur stared at me. His lips trembled, his grip on his cane failing as he gasped in shock. Is it really you, Silas?